Good evening. Welcome to the Durham Planning Commission. The members of the Durham Planning Commission have been appointed by the City Council and the County Board of Commissioners to make recommendations to the elected officials. You should know that the elected officials have the final say on any issue before us tonight. While this meeting is being conducted in person, it is also accessible using the Zoom virtual meeting platform. In the virtual meeting platform, public participants do not have the ability to talk or be seen on video by default. To maintain meeting decorum and a discernible record of the meeting, the chat function has been disabled. For those attending in person, if you plan to speak on an agenda item tonight, please go to the table to my left to sign up to speak. When speaking, please state your name and your address clearly when you come to the podium, and please speak directly into the microphone. If you are attending the meeting virtually, you will be given the ability to speak at the appropriate time. If you have pre-registered, your name will be called for you to make your comments, just like in an in-person public hearing. You may also call in during the meeting tonight by dialing 1-301-715-8592. If you call in during the meeting, you will need to wait until the particular public hearing you are interested in starts. After all of the pre-registered speakers have shared their comments, I will ask if there is anyone else wishing to speak. At that point, you will need to digitally raise your hand by pressing *9 on your phone, and when recognized, state your name and address before making your comments. Time may be limited for speakers depending on the length of the agenda. Finally, all motions are stated in the affirmative, so if a motion fails or ties, the recommendation is for denial. Thank you, and may we have roll call.
Good evening, Grace Smith with the Planning Department. Chair Amendoya.
Here.
Vice Chair Cameron is on the way. I received an email from her a few minutes ago. Commissioner Baker.
Here.
Commissioner Chigueras.
Here.
Commissioner Cutright.
Here.
Commissioner Harrod. Commissioner McIver.
Here.
Commissioner Morgan.
Here.
Commissioner Cease also is on the way. Commissioner, he's walking in. Oh, you're perfect timing. I'll mark you present. Okay. Commissioner Valentine.
Here.
Commissioner Carmen Williams.
Here.
Commissioner Zuri Williams.
Here.
And Chair, we had a request for an excused absence from Commissioner Davis. If you would like to wait, we can do that at the end of the meeting just to see who else may or may not show, or we can do that now. It's however you'd like to.
I think that's the only excused absence we're aware of, so let's go ahead and make the vote on that. So can I get a motion for an excused absence?
So moved.
Seconded. Moved by Commissioner Baker, seconded by Commissioner Morgan. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed have the same right. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Next on our agenda, we have the approval of the minutes and consistency statements from the November 15th, 2022 meeting. Does anybody have any comments or edits to the November meeting minutes? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Move to approve the minutes.
I have a motion from Commissioner Baker.
Second.
Second from Commissioner Carmen Williams. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed have the same right. Motion passes unanimously.
Noted for the record that Commissioner Harrod has arrived.
Thank you. With that, we will jump right into our public hearing items for the evening. We're going to begin with case Z2100039 Courtyards at George Hill. We'll begin with the staff report and presentation.
Good evening, Alexander Cahill with the Planning Department. Before we proceed, we'd like to state for the record that all items have been noticed in accordance with state law, and affidavits are on record of these notices in the Planning Department. So this first public hearing is for case Z2100039 Courtyards at George King. This is for 46 acres at 5524 George King Road. It's located within the suburban tier and currently in the county jurisdiction. There's an associated annexation petition into the city limits that's associated with this zoning map change request. The existing zoning is residential suburban 20, and the applicant is proposing to rezone the site to PDR 2.707. That zoning designation is consistent with the future land use map designation. The staff report may have been unclear, and we just wanted to clarify that this evening. The existing FLUM is low-density residential, which denotes this as 4 dwelling units an acre or less. There are no zoning overlays on site, and this project is for the construction of 99 single-family and townhouse units. You can see on the zoning context map shown on the screen, the yellow is the RS20 that surrounds the site to the north, the south, and the east. You can also see that the site is adjacent to zoning outside the city of Durham zoning districts. That would be Chapel Hill zoning districts, and those are residential districts as well. The aerial site shows the general location of the proposal. There are service amenities 2 miles from the site, and the nearest transit stop is 4 miles from this site. The summary of the commitments for this proposal: the applicant is proposing a maximum of 99 units and proposing to limit them to single-family detached or townhouse units. They're proposing a minimum 40% and maximum 50% of units to be townhomes. There are dimensional and size restrictions that are denoted on the development plan. And there's an inclusion of recreational open space with at least 3 distinct areas with a list of potential amenity options that include a pool, a clubhouse, community garden, or other amenities. There is a minimum 70 feet of right-of-way dedication for collector streets that include 5 feet of sidewalks, 5 feet of bicycle lanes, and a 10-foot shared facility, and a dedication of additional 45 feet of right-of-way along George King Road, providing 5 feet of additional asphalt for bicycle lanes. Also a commitment to provide a new 100-foot greenway trail easement. They are also committing to prohibiting the construction traffic from utilizing the site by existing road stubs of Lancaster, Hebides, and Dundalk until the 20th certificate of occupancy is issued. And all stormwater control measures will be discharged to flow south to the U.S. Army Corps' property. There's also a dedication of right-of-way for the proposed roundabout at the intersection of George King Road and the proposed collector street on site access 1, shown in your development plan. There are several design commitments as well. These include a minimum of 3 colors being utilized per building, prohibiting vinyl siding, composite shingles or metal on residential buildings. A neighborhood meeting was held in accordance with ordinance requirements on September 21st, 2021. On the engagement site, 44 social pinpoint comments were provided. Staff did reach out to the town of Chapel Hill, provide notice back in May, and also reached out again today and have not received comments from the town of Chapel Hill on this proposal. Staff does determine that this request is inconsistent with some of the community goals and objectives of the comprehensive plan, but is consistent with the future land use map. The proposal would increase the housing supply by 99 units. The site is not contiguous to the primary corporate limits and would create what the old comprehensive plan defined as leapfrog development. The site is not near existing service or transit amenities. And there were additional 44 social pinpoint comments provided that requested additional information, engagement, and concerns about the proposal. That is all the staff has this evening. Applicant is also available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to open the public hearing. We will provide first 10 minutes for the applicant to provide their presentation.
Good evening, Chairman Amendolia, Vice Chair Cameron, members of the Planning Commission. I'm Patrick Biker with Morningstar Law Group. I live at 2614 Stewart Drive. I'm here tonight representing Epcon Communities for this rezoning, and also with us tonight are Ryan Akers and I believe Laura Holloman, who are my good friends from McAdams. I do want to thank the staff for their presentation. On this item, and I think it'd be helpful to give some more background on this case. We've had a few neighborhood meetings and other correspondence with surrounding neighbors about this project. In our first neighborhood meeting, we actually were soliciting feedback from the neighbors without first having a plan in regards to how to develop this site. That's because the city and the county initially disagreed or disagree about how this property ought to be developed. When the compact neighborhood tiers were adopted, the county removed this property from the compact neighborhood tier while the city kept it in. Accordingly, we wanted to understand from the neighbors what they felt was the optimal way for this site to be developed. And from our first neighborhood meeting, we felt there was a strong preference for this site to be developed outside the compact neighborhood tier. And so we moved forward with a concept that matched that feedback. It's a good thing we did. What we did not know at the time was that from a technical standpoint, the development of this site is limited by utility constraints to no more than 99 units. That is because this property represents the very western edge of Durham's service area. The area to the west of us, even though it is in Durham County, is part of the town of Chapel Hill, and it is serviced by Owasso. As a result, we are unable to provide the adequate water line loops to get above 99 units. This is purely an issue with a technical City of Durham engineering requirement. Accordingly, based on the acreage and that unit limitation, the density we are requesting tonight is PDR 2.707. This project will consist of both single-family homes and townhomes. We have committed to providing at least 40% of the overall units as townhomes, but no more than 50%. We've also committed to providing at least 3 distinctive recreational open space areas, each one being a minimum of a ½ acre in size. Accordingly, there will be ample open space for this new community. There are several conditions which have been added as a direct result of our communications with the area residents. The residents to the west in Chapel Hill originally asked for a 75-foot undisturbed buffer along our western property line. Our team studied this extensively, and I hope we've reached a compromise with the Chapel Hill residents. It will be a tight squeeze, but we will be providing a 65-foot wide, 0.8 opacity buffer along that property line, with the western 50 feet remaining undisturbed. We also have prohibited construction traffic from a few residential roads in the neighborhood, as was requested by the neighborhood. That is condition 13 on the development plan before you tonight. And condition 14 speaks to another concern from our adjacent residents. We've agreed to design the site so there will be no increase in stormwater to the west of this site. In addition, it should be noted that the project commits to no more than 24% impervious surface. As I said, our team's had several conversations with neighborhood residents. They've engaged an attorney, and from our last correspondence, our understanding is that there are only 2 outstanding items from the neighborhood. One of them has to do with committing to build a roundabout along George King Road, which is an element of the approved collector street plan. I bring this up because that's a very important point. First of all, we agree with the neighbors that the roundabout is a needed piece of infrastructure in this area. That's why it is on the collector street plan. The value of it is unquestionable. But where the roundabout is shown on the collector street plan is important. We've worked with the city on several elements of the collector street plan, and we have been told it is that while the applicants have limited flexibility when it comes to shifting road locations within their properties on the collector street plan, the location of the roundabout is fixed by the collector street plan. EPCON cannot commit to building the roundabout because portions of it, as shown on the collector street plan, are on properties not owned or controlled by EPCON. We simply cannot guarantee its completion, but as Mr. Cahill referenced, we have dedicated all the right-of-way on our property for the roundabout to be constructed. Accordingly, commitment number 15 spells out that proffer. At this point, that is the extent of what we can do to bring the roundabout closer to fruition. Similarly, we are dedicating right-of-way for 2 more collector roads that traverse this property pursuant to the collector street plan. One of those is the extension of Lancaster from the west, which this project will connect to. The other is the extension of Meadowmont Lane, but this project will not be connecting to that road. These 2 roads represent the only stream crossings on our development plan, and they could not be avoided as they are planned collector streets shown on the collector street plan. On the development plan before you, you see that the project is essentially split into 4 distinct areas on account of the streams and the road network. Those areas are labeled A, B, C, and D, and you can see that areas A and B closest to George King Road are where the townhomes are allowed. Areas C and D only allow for single-family detached homes. This transition creates what we believe is appropriate a transition in intensity from the single-family residential neighborhood in Chapel Hill to the west and to the compact neighborhood tier in Durham to the east of George King Road. In closing, this is an interesting development for a number of reasons. From an engineering standpoint, we're limited by the utility infrastructure to a maximum number of units, which is, again, 99 units. As a result, there's no way to develop this site consistent with compact neighborhood tier standards. It's just not possible under these set of facts. Our neighbors to the west in Chapel Hill would rather see the entire site developed with large lot single-family detached homes with a large buffer along the western side. But we believe in the need for a variety of housing, especially denser housing on the eastern side of the property, which makes more sense and a better transition to the compact neighborhood style of development that will be along the east of George King Road. We think with those limitations, we think this project is a good compromise. The site still gets maxed out at 99 units, but the single-family homes will be closer to the Chapel Hill residents, and the townhomes will be closer to the compact neighborhood, the Lee Village compact neighborhood. For all these reasons, we respectfully ask for your approval, and our team is happy to answer any questions you may have tonight. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. With that, we'll move to public comment for folks who signed up as either opponents or proponents. Just as a note for future reference, typically when we do these, we will allot 2 minutes per person for anyone to come up and provide their comments for or against a proposal. However, there was some confusion on this case tonight, so I have worked with some of the communities that had some presentations prepared to accommodate their requests given the kind of miscommunication that happened on that front. So what is about to happen is an exception. But in general, we will do 2 minutes per case. So we're going to have, we have a presentation from one of the community representatives. That's going to be from Nancy Dory. She's going to have 10 minutes to give her presentation. And then from there, we will go to Mark, Anna, and Jonathan Langston. The two of them will have 2 minutes apiece, and then anyone else who signed up that did not indicate they were part of one of these groups, I will give you all 2 minutes apiece as well. Clear as mud. Nancy, you may begin.
Great.
Also, please state your name and address before beginning.
Thank you. My name is Nancy Dory. I live at 407 Lancaster Drive in Durham County. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you, Chair Austin, for your assistance in working this out. We do have a group of 5 who each signed up for 2 minutes, so that's the 10 minutes here. Let me jump right in. First, I'd like to thank several members of the Planning Commission staff. For those of us in the community needing to learn about land development, the UDO in Durham, et cetera, they were extremely helpful. Mike Stock, Erlene Thomas, Alexander Cahill all took time to explain things to us, answer questions. We're really appreciative. We also want to express appreciation for Scott Whiteman and the excellent work that he has done on the development of the new comprehensive plan to build a stronger, more sustainable future for Durham. We're very excited about that. So first off, who is this coalition that I'm speaking on behalf of? Well, if you're here in support of this, if you could please stand so they get some idea, raise your hand or stand, that would be wonderful. So we have quite a few people here. Thank you so much. We are the residents of Oaks Villas, an HOA of 62 homes. Also, most of the residents along George King Road itself, as well as several on Nottingham Road, plus Bo House of the Triangle Land Conservancy and Johnny Randall, whom you probably all know. This particular image shows where we live. In yellow is the parcel. In light green are the parcels that we own. And then in blue at the bottom is the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers land, the wetlands that extend south, and we'll talk about that further. We all understand, first off, that in your role, you really need to try to balance the need for more housing and more affordable housing with smart, environmentally sustainable development practices and with the rights of property owners who wish to develop their land, and that there are tensions and there are trade-offs, and that you're in a position of always trying to balance those factors. We think the goals and objectives that both the city and the county have adopted really do a good job of addressing that need to balance these tough factors. We think the question before us tonight regarding this rezoning application for a new non-contiguous neighborhood is whether it advances or at a minimum aligns with Durham's adopted goals and objectives. And there are really four that this particular application pertains to, and you see those starred here. So we'll walk through those quickly one by one. First, on sense of place. The objective states that we need inclusive neighborhoods made up diverse housing where people of different races, ethnicities, ages, and incomes can live together, et cetera. How does this add up to that? Well, this is an age-targeted community of 99 units. EPCON has been building exclusively for the 55 and older market for 37 years nationally. They are over $650 million in revenue last year. Corporation exists in many states, and this is their market and has been. They build a single product for this market. In this particular case, we estimate that the future prices for homes in this neighborhood, should it be developed, would be $600,000 and up, given where the prices are currently at their development in South Point. So in general, how does this proposal align with Durham's goal around sense of place? Well, there'll be little to no age or income diversity, and there'll be no affordable units. What about the next goal of housing in neighborhoods? Well, this goal calls for walkable, complete neighborhoods where housing, jobs, schools, and destinations are close together, where every resident is able to access essential daily needs within a 15-minute walk, roll, or bike ride. How does this proposal measure up? Well, north of the parcel along George King Road, that's to remain gravel. It's narrow, it's gravel, and there's no shoulder. South of the parcel, EPCON commits to pave it, but not to city standards. Again, no sidewalk, no curbs. The closest convenience store or pharmacy is a 1.3-mile walk, or 25 minutes by foot, according to Google Maps, and going along a feeder road to North Carolina 54. So at the end of the day, this is not a walkable community, but a satellite, not walkable to services. Even the paved half of George King is not brought to city standards. And that walk north to the elementary school along the gravel road with no shoulder is a 1.2-mile walk. How about on transportation? How well does it align to that goal? Well, that goal calls for housing, jobs, schools, community resources, et cetera, intentionally planned in coordination with the transportation needed to easily reach them, to ensure that new mixed-use development areas are served by existing or new high-quality transit. But this development, as Alexander stated, is 4.1 miles from the nearest Durham transit stop. It's also 1.3 miles to the nearest Chapel Hill transit stop. The recommended transit plan, the new one that's just being developed as part of the new comprehensive plan process, intended to guide development for the next 20-plus years, does not add any transit stop that is closer. So this is the best it will be for 20-plus years. So in alignment, well, no existing or planned public transit. All residents would have to be able to own a car, and this would be a totally car-dependent community for a couple of decades at least. We'd also like to note that it will create a serious safety issue in the Oaks Villas itself along Lancaster Road. We predict it will generate as many as 600 additional cars per day along that section of Lancaster based on the traffic studies from Kinsale Road to the north, which connects the northern part of the Oaks over to George King, which gets 1,300 cars a day. So we'd get roughly half of that. We have many senior citizens in Oaks Villas who are out walking every day on the road because we don't have sidewalks. So that's a safety issue for us in particular. What about the goal, the fourth goal on environment? Well, here the goal and objectives call for new development to protect our remaining natural areas, including wetlands, floodplains, lakes, rivers, streams, mature forests, and to create systems where Durham residents have carbon neutral ways of living and moving around. How does this measure up? Well, this parcel is where you see the blue dot. And immediately south of it is Army Corps of Engineer lands that is wetlands. And in fact, all of the land south of this parcel, all the way down to Jordan Lake, is protected watershed to protect our water supply. So this parcel is immediately north and feeds directly into that critical watershed area. In addition, as you see on the left, the parcel is heavily forested. The development plans shows roughly 280 to 300 specimen trees on the parcel within the building envelope, the area to be clear cut. It contains 4 streams, and also in the southern portion, in the middle map, located at the bottom in green, it contains natural heritage land, shown in the green. The developer will clear cut and mass grade the majority of the parcel, all the sections shown in orange. The yellow ones are the required protected stream buffers. And this is part of the business and financial model of this particular developer. As you see in the upper right, that's an actual aerial shot of an existing EPCON development within Durham. In order to have the equipment to move around and construct these buildings, there really is not much choice but to clear cut. This is part of their business and financial model. You would have to extend the lot sizes or spend a lot more to selectively go in and build with that kind of density without clear cutting. And our concern is how environmentally sensitive this parcel is. In addition, you'll see that in the southern section of this parcel, approximately 90% of the land that is natural heritage land would be clear cut of that land that is not within a stream buffer, and potentially including the location of stormwater retention ponds there. So how well is it aligned to your goal on environment? Well, clear cut a heavily forested, environmentally sensitive parcel for a 99-unit development, and it creates a satellite neighborhood that is 100% car dependent for decades. So in summary, does it advance or at a minimum align with our goals and objectives? In our view, no. It's not diverse neighborhood by age or income. It's not walkable. It's not accessible to public transportation now or in any time in the near future. And it's not an environmentally responsible approach to balancing the need for housing with sustainability. So let me emphasize, we don't oppose development of this parcel, but we believe that this particular proposal needlessly negatively impacts the attainment of Durham's important goals and objectives.
Nancy?
We understand that at every
Nancy?
development proposal
So your
will
10
advance every goal.
minutes are up.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Up next, we'll have Mark Anna. Mark, you'll have 2 minutes. Please state your name and address and state your comments.
Good evening. My name's Mark Anna, 5206 George King Road. Thank you, Durham Planning Commissioners, for your time and consideration. I'm representing my family who lives directly to the north of this development, as well as the neighbors surrounding along George King Road as well to the north. We are opposed to this development for the following reasons. We're concerned about the runoff that will be generated by the clear cut to the east, which is downhill from this development. We are being treated differently than our neighbors to the west. Instead of the 65-foot buffer and 80 or 85% opacity, we have a 20-foot buffer and I believe 40% opacity. This development also shows a planned stub access essentially right in my parents' backyard. That will never happen, so we'd like that to be removed. The Anna family also shares concerns about the development with other neighbors along George King Road to the north. Nancy hinted at this. It's currently a gravel road. Undoubtedly, traffic will increase significantly. That poses safety hazards for our neighbors utilizing George King Road as a pedestrian access, walking, and exercise route. This will exacerbate the nuisance that already exists with dust as cars drive and utilize George King Road as a cut-through. And it will also worsen the condition of the road. There's already potholes, and it will lead to increased maintenance costs. We ask that you vote no for this proposal. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Next, we will go to Jonathan Langston. Jonathan is in the Zoom meeting, so if we can get Jonathan unmuted, that would be great.
Good afternoon. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, please state your name and address and begin your comments, and speak up.
All right, I'm Jonathan Langston. I'm the owner of 5508 George King Road, and I've got a presentation. I cannot see it, but I'll say slide. In 2014, EPCON, on the second slide, agreed to the terms of the Chapel Hill Special Use Permit, where EPCON chose to make an $800,000 payment in lieu of offering affordable housing. In March of 2019, a certificate of occupancy was issued, and then no less than 6 months, EPCON sued Chapel Hill for $800,000 plus attorney fees. Now, the U.S. District Court favored in Chapel Hill to dismiss, but EPCON is appealing. Slide. The staff has outlined on the zoning map change report on page 8 of 12 of a 100-foot wide trail easement. We're actually on the wrong slide there, if you can move forward. However, there is an or in the commitment where EPCON can simply do a 10-foot wide shared facility, whatever that means. EPCON should commit to a 100-foot easement. Slide. EPCON built Cup Harbor and was issued a certificate of occupancy by Durham. However, the overflow pond on the western property line is not large enough to hold all the stormwater runoff on the site, and as a result, the backyard neighbor immediately west regularly floods during the rains. Slide. Stormwater runoff will happen on this site as well, except this time the flooding and runoff could cause a neighborly pond to fail. Mature trees reduce runoff, and clear cutting will be disastrous. Mature trees need to be preserved. There is a reason this property is zoned single family. Slide. In addition to its current site, there are plans to develop land just east of the site where more ponds are located. There is a lack of planning for multiple developments, and this will cause catastrophic consequences. Slide. I oppose this project as currently proposed. Development should enhance our community and not diminish it. Vote no on the zoning map change, and I appreciate your time and consideration.
Okay. So just to state back everything for people attending virtually, we had some tech issues with the slides that were just being presented, so staff is working to address it. Jonathan Langston, we may have you speak again so that we can make sure that your slides were seen with the commentary you were making. So just please hold a moment. Alexander, we have two other people who signed up to speak in person. Should we go ahead and hear them? Okay. So two people signed up to speak, Aaron Meadows and Phil Post. If you would both like to come up, and you'll have 2 minutes apiece. Please state your name and address and then make your comments.
Hi, I'm Aaron Meadows, residing at 100 St. Andrews Place, and I'm the president of the Oaks 3 Homeowners Association. We're consists of 120 homes, and we're just north of the Oaks Villas, where Nancy Dory resides. We've been tracking this project. We did participate in the neighborhood meeting that EPCON represented mentioned, and many of the concerns were addressed. There's one particular concern that we're still very much concerned about, and that's about the roundabout that he did talk about. And to go into more detail, I'd like to hand it over to Phil Post, and he's going to speak for a couple minutes. Phil is on the board of directors of our HOA, and he's been involved in this project for the last couple of years. So over to you, Phil.
Thanks, Aaron. I have a slide, Mr. Chairman. Hope you can see that. Let me get to the right, there we go. Mr. Chairman, my name's Phil Post. I live at 104 St. Andrews Place. I've lived in Southwest Durham County for 45 years, and I thank the chairman and the members of the commission this evening. I stand for only the purpose tonight to say one thing, and that is how important the construction of the roundabout is. And I appreciate my friend Patrick Biker teeing up the subject for you, because I think he described to you how vital and important the roundabout is. And so I actually have a 2-minute speech that I'm going to rip off, because Mr. Biker's sort of helped me out tonight. He's described to you that it's on the collector street plan for Southwest Durham County, and that's been the governing plan for roadways in Southwest Durham since 2008. And our neighborhood participated very carefully in the creation of that plan, and the roundabout was a key part of that. So on your screen today, you see the EPCON plan, and I put a red circle around the roundabout. EPCON's promised to grant the right-of-way, but Mr. Biker mentioned to you that they didn't own the land on the other side of the street, which is, I think, probably true, except the additional fact is that the land on the other side of the street is an unbuildable parcel, and it's owned by the same family that sold the land to EPCON. So in our conversations with EPCON, I've pointed out to them a couple of possibilities. I believe that the family, if they knew how important it was to the city of Durham, how vital it is to implement the collector streets plan for this part of the county, that they might well be willing to sell the little portion that might be needed to build the roundabout. I think that needs to be explored further. Secondly, I think there's the possibility of tucking the roundabout onto the project.
Bill, your 2 minutes are up.
Tucking the project on so that you could actually build it. So my fervent request to you is that you require EPCON to build this vital and important roundabout. Thank you.
Thank you. Grace, Alexander, do we have our tech issues ready to go? Okay. Great. So to repeat what Alexander said, staff emailed all of the commissioners the slides so that no matter what, all of the commissioners have the slides to review. We are also, Jonathan Langston, if you are willing to do your presentation again, we are going to have another go at it so your slides can be moving as you're talking.
Honestly, I mean, if y'all heard everything, I don't really see a reason to rehash those comments. But I will just make a comment to say that, I fully support what Mr. Beal was saying about the roundabout and the importance of making it happen and to be built to fruition. And I'll just leave it at that.
Great. Thank you. And if staff, if you could just slowly click through the slides so people can see them and they're part of the public record, I would appreciate that. So before we move on, I want to make sure if anyone else is hoping to speak on this item, if you are in the Zoom meeting, please raise your hand at this time so I can recognize you to speak. And then if there's anyone in person who would like to speak, please come to the podium. I do see one person in Zoom. I see no one coming to the podium. Denise Richards has raised their hand. Denise, please state your name and address, and you'll have 2 minutes to provide any comments.
Thank you. I'm Denise Richards, and I want to thank the previous presenters. I appreciate your homework in preparing this. I live at
Denise, I think you just muted yourself, or were muted by accident.
Sorry about that. Thank you. I'm Denise Richards. I live at 211 Kinsale Drive. That's the road that has the 1,300 vehicles that go up and down it every day. So I can attest to how much traffic goes in and out of the Oaks, certainly from the Creekside Elementary School area, and also to issues associated with drainage problems from clear cutting in this immediate vicinity. So I just wanted to ask how many of those of you that are on the planning committee have actually walked up and down George King Road, because that is a very special community and road. And if you haven't been there, I'm not sure you are appreciating what that area is like. It's a rural island surrounded by busy roads. It's full of trees. There are stables there. There's a wildlife preserve there. There's all kinds of birds, trees. It's a lovely community. It is literally the only place within probably 4 or 5 miles where you can go to walk from Blenheim Woods and the surrounding area. My side of the neighborhood, again, of that road, we're down at the Creekside end. Our area has had several sections of trees cleared. You cannot sit on our back porch anymore in the summer after 3 p.m. without getting so many fumes from I-40 that you have to go inside. So as you guys on the Planning Commission have been approving clearing of all these large properties around here along I-40,
Denise?
we have lost protection
Denise, your 2 minutes are over.
So
Thank you. Okay, with that, we are going to turn to commissioner comments and questions. I did want to make one comment before I turn it over to my colleagues, and that's just for the community members who have been organizing on this case. This is like a minor detail that was confusing to me. When a lot of y'all sent an email that said something to the effect of like, I'm in favor of Oak Villa, or like, I approve of Oak Villa's request and support Oak Villa, it almost made it sound like you approve of the case. And I don't think that's your goal. I think your goal is to say we are, as a community, are together. And so just as you move forward to city council, I would personally recommend you say something like, I'm a member of the Oak Villa HOA and support their desire for this to be rejected, or something that doesn't make it sound like you approve of the case, because I had heard there was some consternation about this rezoning, and then I saw things that looked like approvals, and it was a little confusing at first, and I got there, but if I hadn't taken the extra second, I might have mistook you all for support. Any questions or comments from fellow planning commissioners? Okay, seeing none.
I have a question about the location of the roundabout. Whoever, I believe that was you. I can't remember your name.
And Commissioner Shigaris, are you wanting to hear particularly from the applicant or from the community?
Whoever mentioned the location of the roundabout.
Yes, ma'am.
That would be, yes. You said that the people on the other side are the same people who had sold the property. And on the one map I see, the other side is listed as the Botanical Garden and then Meadowmont. Is that the people you're talking about? Or is the
I can get back to my map.
different location?
This is the map that the developer submitted, so it's called, just a second, ma'am. See, it's this little triangle here. I don't know if you can see it.
Okay, so it would be the Meadowmont Farms.
That is the same ownership. It's the DeBose family. That's what I call them, but at any rate, it's the same family that owns the property on the other side. So it's a little remnant piece over there. And I'm just using the EPCOM maps. I haven't investigated myself, but that's what their maps show, is that the same family owns the land on both sides of the street.
Okay.
And the other suggestion was that the roundabout itself be tucked more into this proposed development, which might not even require a right-of-way on the opposite side of the street. So there's two solutions there to get that roundabout built, in my view.
And so the roundabout, and then, so that whole road is very narrow and gravel.
It is now. It's going to be paved.
The whole thing? Or just the line?
Just to the northern property line, which is, again, I'm not the developer, but it's to be paved up to here, but it'll be paved through the area where the roundabout should be built. And we're asking that in the process of paving it, that you build the roundabout as part of that process. So they've already committed to paving the road, so let's just build the roundabout.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Harrod?
Yes, thank you, Chair. To the applicant, Patrick, you guys are given a right-of-way of 45 feet on this DOT proposed road.
That's correct.
An additional 5 feet, is that right? 15?
That's correct. I believe it's spelled out on the development plan, but that sounds correct.
And what classification, you say DOT standards, what classification are you referring to? Is it going to be a collector or?
I would have to defer to Erlene Thomas on what the name is. It's changed over the years, but to answer your question, it's simply going to be a 2-lane road.
Yeah. Sidewalks, bike lanes?
No, sir. Not south of the project, through the Army Corps land going down to 54. It's a 2-lane, typical DOT road section, and that's because of the Army Corps of Engineers standards.
And then to bring up Phil Post's point, if you could get the right-of-way on the opposite side, would y'all build the roundabout?
There's no, to our knowledge, we're not able to get that right away, Commissioner Harrod. And there is no private right of condemnation in North Carolina. Accordingly, since we don't have the right of way to build what's shown on the collector street plan, we can't commit to it. All we can do is dedicate what is on our frontage and make it possible for the collector street plan to be implemented at a future date as future developments come online. Again, there's no debate that the roundabout is an important infrastructure, piece of infrastructure, but it's not legally possible for our team to build it. I've been doing this for too long. I've seen too many projects where developers agreed to off-site road improvements. They didn't control the right-of-way, either killed the project or almost killed the project.
Well, I suppose there's at least 20 or 25 feet on the opposite side for right-of-way.
I'm
Seems like there is enough right-of-way south of the project.
Yeah, again, that's to be determined by the Army Corps of Engineers, and what other property owners wish to do with their property is, I respect their property rights more than anybody, and so whether or not they want to move forward with selling their property or dedicate any of their property, that's purely their decision.
Okay, a question about the Greenway. It appears that part of it is on the Corps of Engineers property. Is that correct?
Is that right, Ryan? I mean, we can only dedicate, again, we can only dedicate what's on our property. So how it connects through that, I'm not, are you aware of that?
I mean, could y'all not shift it over, or is that?
Laura Holloman from McAdams has more details on that.
Okay.
Commissioner Harrod.
Hey, good evening. Laura Holloman with McAdams. To answer your question, that the Durham's plan does show a greenway through the Army Corps land. So we haven't had specific conversations with the Greenways planner to discuss that. We're just showing the portion of greenway that's on our land that we can control. So I can't speak to whether they would entertain shifting that or not.
Okay, and of course, Patrick, a lot of people brought up environmental concerns. And I think you'd agree they're valid. Would y'all consider going to a 100-year storm design?
Decided that. Ryan Akers is our civil engineer. He'd be able to answer that for us.
I could introduce myself, but thank you. Civil engineer with McAdams. Because we're in the, we're right against the Jordan Lake watershed, which is the impoundment. We don't necessarily agree that holding back water at the FEMA-regulated floodplain is warranted here, it actually might do more damage since you're at the bottom of the watershed. So that might not be in the best interest of the municipality to require that.
Okay. And a question for staff. I take it the natural, excuse me, let me read this particular. The natural heritage area tech amendment did not get approved, is that right? Because that would normally be protected, but I don't see that.
That is correct. There was direction not to move forward the Natural Heritage Amendment.
At this time or any time?
At any time.
Okay. Okay. It'd be nice if y'all would consider protecting some of that area with all the habitat and environmental issues south of that. That's all I got, Chair.
Thank you. Other questions? Commissioner Cease?
Thank you. Just a couple of quick comments. First of all, I want to thank Mr. Post for raising the concerns in regarding not just the roundabout, the significance of it, but the property ownership that is represented on the documents from the applicant. I think that point can't be overstated. That and I would take a little bit of issue, I think, with my friend Mr. Biker's description of the property ownership, if in fact those patterns are as represented, and they may not be, because who knows the time frame in which this was submitted other than the applicant and staff. That's not important, but what is important are the points that Mr. Post raised, that if there was an interest in developing this parcel and the roundabout was deemed to be very significant, I think there would be ways to do it, whether it's on the parcel that is owned by the entity that is selling all this land to be developed, or whether it's on the parcel that is proposed to be developed by offsetting somewhat from the center line, as Mr. Post suggested. So I appreciate that observation. I also just want to acknowledge Nancy Dory's presentation, and I want to be clear in what I'm praising with it, because I think this is a larger conversation that staff and the commission members, we face every month. There are a lot of community goals and objectives that have now been adopted, and it's very easy to pick certain ones of those that probably every single project that comes before us could violate it in some way. But there's a general kind of consistency, I think, across the whole collection of those goals and objectives that I think your presentation very appropriately identified in terms of raising some of your concerns, but expressing it in terms of what's adopted as policy. So I really appreciate you sharing that, and for having your neighbors allocate that extra time to you to do that, because that's also something that we don't often have. And I'm not necessarily encouraging it, but I just want to acknowledge that as a good benchmark, because another way to think of it, I think, with the last point here, and this is my last point, the point that Commissioner Harrod raised with regards to the natural heritage area and the preservation of that area, is this constraint of 99 units on the property as a utility constraint. With a site that is like this, and I have, as Denise Richards raised on the public comments, I spent a lot of time, it's been years, but I spent a lot of time up and down George King Road looking at property along that stretch of the road. So I'm familiar with the site. And the question, I think, for the public entity considering this, i.e. council, it's not us that votes on it, is whether what is being generated is worth what's lost. And for 99 units to be located in a site that's this special, configured, all single family, whether attached or not, all age targeted, with limited other benefits, notwithstanding the greenway and some other things that are listed, but all in all, really not much else is being offered except to the extent of what benefits those future 99 households. And I think that's pretty limiting relative to what's being lost for a site that's this special in its kind of configuration and relationship to what is limited transportation network infrastructure and what is really kind of a special circumstance relative to the Jordan Lake lands. So with that, I'll stop. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments, questions? Commissioner Carmen Williams.
I will be extremely brief. I just wanted to speak to the community members, and I wanted to thank you for standing up for the characteristics that have made Durham for such a long time. The things that you are looking to preserve are the things that I have enjoyed since I was a child. Quite familiar with this area, this neighborhood. I travel it frequently, especially when fall hits, and it's one of the favorite areas that I have. Anything that will threaten your ability to walk and to navigate in this neighborhood is of a gross concern to myself. And I think that your ability to preserve your quality of life is imperative. And we, as representatives of the city of Durham, need to do what we can in order to make sure that we both preserve your ability to remain here, to thrive, as well as the ability for us to grow. So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Morgan.
Thank you, Chair. I think what I'm trying to struggle with is, you know, we had a couple cases come before us with Crescent on the east side of this as well, and I'm looking at the place type map, and it seems like I'm looking at a jigsaw puzzle without having the whole picture of what we really want to do in this area. And I think what's missing is, you know, it's a compact neighborhood, but we don't have a lot of commercial type development or plans in that area. So my thought is, I'm not saying anything against the development itself, but how do I see all these pieces fit together? When I look at the place map, I look at what the neighbors are concerned about. I think they're concerned about what's this area going to look like coming up as we look at all these different parcels or applications coming forward. And I think what's missing is just the missing pieces. As I look at that jigsaw puzzle, and I'm saying there's something in the middle here that I think we were told there was going to be some commercial potential in there. And if that is, then that seems to kind of fit together with what we're looking at. But we have a compact neighborhood that was put together before the light rail. Now we don't have a light rail, and now is why do we have a compact neighborhood? So I guess that's my comment about this particular piece of the puzzle, and I'm still trying to figure out all of the other pieces.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Commissioner Baker.
One quick question for the applicant, Mr. Biker. I just wanted to double check. One of the commitments was to dedicate a greenway easement, but that's just dedication of the easement, not actual construction of the greenway.
I believe that's correct, right?
Okay.
Yes, that's correct, Commissioner.
Okay. Yeah, I would agree with a lot of the commissioners who spoke before me. Coming back to something that Commissioner Cease says, I think it's really important for us to think about what are we replacing forest and farmland with, or when we're upzoning or doing other kinds of things, what kinds of things are being replaced, and is what is being proposed an improvement, is something that's making the city better. When there's a property like this with some beautiful forest land, and we're making a trade-off, is it something that is an improvement? And that also leads us to some difficult places, because consistency with the comprehensive plan will lead to things like clear cutting, things like higher densities. But it will also provide some improvements like walkability, which is not part of this application. And then the second thing I want to say is just, we as a body have been increasingly trying to help streamline the process and make things a little bit easier, move a little bit more quickly, while balancing input from the public. And when applicants can bring forward applications that are consistent with the comprehensive plan, that makes our job a lot easier. We don't want to be sitting up here trying to figure things out at the last minute, or even saying no to things. We want to say yes to things, but we can't do that unless things are consistent with the comprehensive plan. So that's my ask to applicants, is make sure that your application is in a good place before you come to us. And so that's just one thing I want to say there.
Thank you. Other questions, comments? Mr. Biker, I know you and your colleague, Mr. Neil Ghosh, have been very active in this area, and so you may already be aware of my commentary for this area, which is very similar to the points Commissioner Morgan brought, is that this clearly is going to be an area where there's a good opportunity for mixed-use development that allows for that commercial and residential interplay. And one thing I liked about the way you described this site was the transition in density as you move away from what is most likely to be that kind of commercial center. I think, as you might expect from me, I always love to see more density so that we can kind of make that transition a bit sharper and add more housing stock for the amount of land that's in that place, similar to Commissioner Cease and Commissioner Baker's commentary about what are we getting when we're clear cutting the land. So those are my thoughts on it. I recognize this will likely become residential eventually, and I just want to see it done a little bit more intentionally. And given that your offices are working a lot in this space, I think this would be a great opportunity for maybe some kind of joint development plan, if possible, to get collaboration between different property owners, because it seems very evident that this is all going to develop pretty closely in conjunction with each other. With that, do I have a motion to move this forward? Actually, I'm going to close the public hearing, and then can we get a motion on this case?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we take case number Z2100039, the Courtyards at George King, to be forwarded to the City Council with favorable recommendation.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Morgan, seconded by Commissioner Baker. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, may we have the roll call vote?
Yes, Chair Amendolia,
No.
Vice Chair Cameron,
No.
Commissioner Baker,
No.
Commissioner Shigaris,
No.
Commissioner Cutright,
No.
Commissioner Harrod,
No.
Commissioner McIver,
Nope.
Commissioner Morgan,
No.
Commissioner Cease,
No.
Commissioner Valentine,
No.
Commissioner Carmen Williams,
No.
Commissioner Zuri Williams.
No.
Fails unanimously.
Thank you. Thanks to the applicants, thanks to staff, and thanks to the community that came out to speak on this item. Up next, we have case Z2200022. We will begin with the staff report and presentation.
Demir Powell, Planning Department. This case is Z2200024, 901 and 903 Sherron Road for a proposed zoning map change. The proposal is located at 901 and 903 Sherron Road. The site is located within the suburban development tier and is currently in the county. An annexation petition, BDG 22-00015, is running concurrently with this proposal to annex these properties into city limits. The proposal includes two parcels which total 17.78 acres that are currently zoned residential rural and residential suburban 20. The proposed zoning is residential suburban 10 to facilitate the construction of additional units. The existing future land use map designation is low to medium density residential, and this proposal is a straight rezoning with no text or graphic development plan included. The existing zoning is residential rural and residential suburban 20. The proposed zoning is residential suburban 10. The aerial map shows the general location of the project and surrounding development. And a neighborhood meeting was held in accordance with UDO requirements on April 28, 2022. No social pinpoint comments were provided. And staff determines that this request is consistent with the comprehensive plan and other adopted ordinances and policies. The proposed residential suburban 10 zoning designation complies with the current FLUM designation of low to medium density residential. And the number of units and unit types are not proposed, but the rezoning would allow a higher density of units that would increase the housing supply. Lastly, the site is within the Falls Jordan District B watershed protection overlay and will be subject to impervious surface limitations at the site plan stage. And staff and the applicant are available to answer any questions.
Thank you. We're going to open the public hearing. We'll begin with the applicant presentation. The applicant will have 10 minutes to provide their presentation. I'm not sure I see the applicant unless they're attending online. I see Chris Record has raised their hand. In the Zoom meeting, can we get Chris unmuted? Okay.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes. Are you the applicant?
I am the applicant, yes. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, members of the board. My name is Chris Record with Strong Rock Engineering, 6801 Falls of Neuse Road in Raleigh. I'd like to thank the staff for their analysis and report. We are in agreement with their recommendation and believe that the rezoning from RS20 and residential rural to RS10 is in the spirit and intent of the comprehensive plan and meets the future land use map designation. This is a straight rezoning, so there's a list of permitted uses. I can say that the intent of this development would be a single family and townhome, high quality community with open space and associated amenities. Sean Gaddis with Drees Homes is also, I think, signed up to speak. He is the client and under contract for this property. Again, thank you very much for your consideration of this. And I'll be happy to answer any questions at a later time here.
Thank you. No one has signed up to speak in person. If there's anyone here in person who would like to speak on this item, please come to the podium at this time. If there's anyone else on the Zoom meeting who would like to speak on this item, please raise your hand at this time. I see Donna Steinbeck has raised their hand in Zoom. Donna, you'll have 2 minutes to provide your comments. Please state your name and address and make your comments.
Okay, and I believe Carrie Steinbeck was registered, and Carrie would like to give his time to me to speak.
Donna, we are not giving time to other individuals. If he would like to speak himself, he may do so.
I was going to let her speak. She was prepared.
Yeah, if you would like to make comment, you may. Otherwise, Donna, you'll have 2 minutes.
Okay. Well, the first item is the fact that since we did not have a development plan, a lot of the information that we look at ahead of time was not available, and this is not going to be available to site planning. This is a disadvantage because we do not get a chance to comment on these standards and see if we can get proffers made. The next thing is that with the information that was put on the server, the wrong site was put on the server, and that was never corrected. They had a site for Gear Street, and so the comprehensive plan comments were completely lost. They were not applicable. And I sent an email to y'all about this last week.
Recording in progress.
But I didn't get any update about what happened with the goals and the community goals and objectives not being available. Now, the rest of my time I'd like to use to go look at the items that I'm able to make some comments about. Okay, for blasting, this is going to be a probable, and right now, out of 24 sites that have been tested, that have been blasted in Eastern Durham this year, only 3 wells are tested, and these were 3 wells that we provided the contacts and addresses to out of Preserve Rural Durham. They're not checking on, and there has been well disturbance as a result of the mass grading and the steep slopes that are in the area and the need for blasting. We would like to make, we do not know
Donna?
what
Donna, your 2 minutes are up.
standards this site will be held to, because we know there.
Donna, oh, thank you. Up next, we have Pamela Andrews. Pamela, you'll have 2 minutes. Please state your name and address and make your comments.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, we can hear you, Pamela.
Hello. Hello.
Pamela, we hear you. I have attempted to message her in the chat.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Pamela, we can hear you.
Hi, I can't hear you guys, but I assume, I'm hoping you can hear me. My name is Pamela Andrews. I live at 6108 Wake Forest Highway. I'm calling in today, as Donna mentioned, about the blasting issues. Most of these developments have required blasting, and this is very close to a school. These blastings have gone on for weeks and months at a time, not to mention this backs up to Foxborough Lane. A lot of this blasting has led to very serious environmental
Recording in
turbidity
progress.
with numbers right at the Olive Branch Road, Kemp Road, Hurricane Creek, as well as right the area right behind the school with very, very high levels. I'm asking you to please put a pause on these until these new amendments that would restrict the amount of sediment that's flowing into our creeks. Thank you.
Thank you, Pamela. Okay, this time I see no one else either standing to speak or with their hand raised in the Zoom meeting. So I'm going to turn this over to Commissioner comments and questions. Commissioner Morgan.
Thank you, Chair. I have a question for the applicant. The question is about how many units are you planning to build? I was looking at the staff report and I wasn't able to see that, about approximately.
So we have gone through a preliminary exercise, more or less a sketch plan. We have environmental delineation done on the site, so we know that the stream on the site is a perennial stream. But in general, the unit count that we were looking at while trying to do a mixed residential place type of townhomes and single family came back around 65 to 70.
Okay. And are you looking to connect to Poplar and Foxborough? I see a kind of a stub street coming out from each of those to go through the existing neighborhood.
I believe we would, this might be, I might have to defer to staff, but I would think that any development on this site would have to stub to Joycliff. And we would also stub to the northeast. We would not try to stub across the stream just to avoid impacts, wetland impacts. But yes, I believe that would be the plan, is to connect Sherron Road with Joycliff.
So is that going to be like one single street going through the properties themselves?
It would likely be one street, yes, just due to the configuration of the property and the environmental constraints.
Yeah, I appreciate you describing it. I know there's no development plan, so that kind of gives me a little bit of visualization of what's there. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Commissioner Carmen Williams.
Thank you, Chair Amendolia. I will be brief. In looking through a lot of this questionnaire in terms of the sustainability summary, as well as the goals for the community goals and objectives relevant to the zoning map changes. It seems that the majority of the things that are essential to what we're trying to establish in Durham appear to be not applicable to your application process. And with that, I have several concerns in terms of if there were not environmental constraints on this site, exactly what would you be proposing, especially since there is no development plan and there is a skin and bones at best description of what will be provided. I do have concerns about what impacts will be generated within this area since there was no need for a traffic impact study and the transportation mode for sustainability. The volume created says not available. No development plan was provided for stormwater development review. So then we also don't know the environmental impacts that will be created from whatever is placed here. So I would like to express my extreme concern as we have been addressing issues for the residents in this area with development, runoff concerns, stormwater collection, stormwater management, and it just appears that prior to this case, we had something with some type of anything that we could grasp on, and that is not present in this current proposal. So I'm deeply concerned with the number of possible units that are possible that you may have, that you may suggest on this lot. And I don't know that I'm prepared to cut a blank check. Those are my comments.
Thank you. Other commissioner comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, be ready. I'm going to close the public hearing. I'd be ready for a motion at this time.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we take case Z2200024, case 901 and 903 Sherron Road, to be forwarded to the City Council with favorable recommendation.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Morgan, seconded by Commissioner Valentine. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, may we have the roll call vote?
Yes, Chair Amendolia,
No.
Vice Chair Cameron,
No.
Commissioner Baker,
No.
Commissioner Chigueras,
No.
Commissioner Cutright,
No.
Commissioner Harrod, Commissioner McIver,
No.
Commissioner Morgan,
No.
Commissioner Cease,
No.
Commissioner Valentine,
No.
Commissioner Carmen Williams,
No.
and Commissioner Zuri Williams.
No.
Okay, it passes to 11 to 1.
Fails 11-1.
Oh, I'm sorry, it failed 111. Let me just get that correct for you. Failed 111. This is what happens when Tom Miller tells you that you're very sharp for your age.
Thank you. Thank you to the staff. Thank you to applicants. Just a quick note for my fellow Planning Commission members. You should have gotten the comment forms for the items tonight re-upped in your inbox. So if you are wanting to complete those while we're here, those are available to you. Okay, with that, we're going to move to our next public hearing item. This is case Z2200030 American Village Townhomes, and we will begin with the staff report and presentation.
Demir Powell, Planning Department. This case is Z22030 American Village Townhomes for a proposed zoning map change. The proposal is located at 626 Marine Road. The site is located within the suburban development tier and is within city limits. The proposal includes one parcel which totals 0.725 acres and is currently zoned residential suburban 10. The proposed zoning is residential suburban multifamily with a text-only development plan to facilitate the construction of up to 5 townhouse units. The existing future land use map designation is low-density residential. If this proposal is approved, staff recommend a change to the future land use map designation to be low to medium density residential. The existing zoning is residential suburban 10, and the applicant is proposing to rezone to residential suburban multifamily with a text-only development plan. And the aerial map shows the general location of the proposal and the surrounding development. The applicant has included a text commitment to construct a townhouse building made up of no more than 5 attached dwelling units. And a neighborhood meeting was held in accordance with UDO requirements on June 14th, 2022. No social pinpoint survey responses were provided. Lastly, staff determined that this request is consistent with the comprehensive plan and other adopted ordinances and policies. The proposed use is compatible with the apartments across from American Drive on parcel 124750. However, it is more intense than the adjacent single-family uses on the same block. If this proposal is approved, staff recommend a change to the future land use map designation to be low to medium density residential. And staff and the applicant are available to answer any questions.
Thank you. We're going to open the public hearing. We'll begin with the applicant presentation. You'll have 10 minutes to provide your presentation.
Can you see the PowerPoint?
No. Oh, there it is.
There we go. All right. Good evening, Chair Amendolia, members of the commission. My name is Marie Farmer with Parker Poe, 301 Fayetteville Street, Raleigh, on behalf of the developer of this small parcel, Josh Eggleston, who is a resident of the neighborhood and here tonight. We are also accompanied by Rob Emerson, landscape architect, to address any technical questions you may have. This request is to rezone a less than 1 acre parcel located on the corner of Maureen Road and American Drive to allow for the development of approximately 5 townhomes. As you can see from this image, this is a unique parcel with several encumbrances that constrain the allowable buildable area. There is an electrical transmission tower and easement on American Drive, power lines in the right-of-way on Maureen Road, and there is a city sidewalk bike lane project anticipated on Maureen Road for March of 2023. Because of the unique nature and location of this site, we are requesting to rezone the property from RS10 to RSM to allow for the development of approximately 5 townhomes, which we believe makes more sense for this site than a single-family residence. We submitted our application with a text-only development plan to limit the number of uses, or the number of units, that would be permissible on the site. The current flume designation only allows for 4 units or less, so our request would be to amend the FLUM designation from low to low medium density to allow for 5 units. This request is consistent with the draft place type map designation because allowing 5 townhomes promotes a variety of housing types by adding townhomes to an area that currently has single-family homes and the Maureen West apartments. This is also consistent with the apartment and townhouse designation that is directly across the street. This designation also specifically contemplates smaller infill sites that are difficult to develop and require design flexibility, which perfectly describes this property. During our neighborhood meeting, we received positive feedback with the hope that this project will prevent people from dumping garbage on the corner, which is apparently a problem due to the existing condition of the property. As you can see from this slide here, this shows the draft revised place type map. And you can see that this property is adjacent to the apartment and townhouse designation, which is directly across the street. And then you can also see the neighborhood services on the corner of Linden Terrace and Maureen Road, and on Andrews Road and Maureen Road. And as you can see from this slide right here, the zoning across the street is RUM, and that is where the Maureen West apartments are located. And you can also see the commercial neighborhood that is on Linden Terrace. And then you can see the office and institutional zoning that exists on the corner of Maureen Road and Andrews Road. And you can also see just up the road there is the RSM designation directly to the northeast. This request is consistent with the comprehensive plan because it will allow for contiguous infill development at a density consistent with the suburban tier and surrounding area. And as you can see, these are the policies that are consistent. And finally, the property is more suitable for the proposed RSM designation than the current RS10 due to its unique nature and location. And the development of townhomes will improve the balance of uses in the area, meet demand in Durham, and provide a transition between the apartments that currently exist and the single-family uses in the area. And so we thank you for your time. We look forward to any questions you may have. I believe that the applicant team has all signed up to speak, but this concludes our presentation, so we're available for any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Thank you. Outside of the applicant team, I have not seen anyone who has signed up to speak on this item. If there's anyone who would like to speak on this item, please come to the podium or raise your hand in the Zoom meeting to indicate your desire to speak. I see that Pam Williams has raised their hand in the Zoom meeting. Pam, you'll have 2 minutes to provide comments. Please state your name and address, and then make your comments.
Sure. My name's Pam Williams. I live at 2130 Adventure Trail, Durham, North Carolina. I guess the main, I know this is a real small area, but my main concern is tree preservation or the opacity for trees. I know this is going to be a compact and sometimes it's not required, but I'd like to stress the importance that maintaining the existing trees that's out there along the property lines, not grading to the property lines and destroying the trees that are on the property lines now is very important to our climate, our environmental issues, our stormwater. And I'd like to stress that the applicant to include tree preservation and more detail on what they're going to do about maintaining the trees or supplementing, and would like to see a higher opacity than a 0.4, something like a 0.6 or something. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak at this time? If you're in Zoom, please raise your hand if you would like to speak. Okay, seeing none. You had about 6 minutes left of your time, so I'm going to let you go ahead and just directly respond to that before we get into commissioner comment and question.
Yes, and if we could pull up the PowerPoint presentation again, if that's possible, to better answer this question. So as you can see, there is the electrical transmission tower and easement on American Drive, and then there are the power lines that are along Maureen Road that we described. On American Drive, where the transmission tower is located, there is a 44-foot Duke Energy transmission easement, this site, because of the UDO requirements for street yards, will have a 25-foot minimum street yard, and there's also a 25-foot minimum clear zone for the existing electrical transmission tower. So as we described, the actual buildable area on this site is quite small. The site is already less than 1 acre, so where the townhomes will be built will be much smaller than that. But based on the UDO requirements for this site, 30-foot undisturbed project boundary buffer would exist along both of the sides where the single-family townhomes are located, and that would be undisturbed. So the trees that you see, it would be on the other side of where this picture is located, but you can see some of the trees that are there, and all of those trees would be preserved in that 30-foot buffer.
Thank you. Okay, with that, I'm going to turn it over to commissioner comment and questions. Commissioner Carmen Williams.
I just wanted to say that you guys are going to be extremely creative to navigate on this lot. And I, for one, would like to watch this process from start to finish, because given the difficulty of this site and how it's oriented, it's going to take some creativity to not only prepare the site for construction, but also to navigate the existing infrastructure that is there power-wise without interrupting anyone's power in this area. You guys have accepted the challenge. That is it.
Thank you. Other comments, questions? I have a soft spot for Maureen Road. It was the first road I lived on when I moved to Durham. And I am excited to see this type of infill development here. I think we ask ourselves a lot on this commission how are we ever going to like take all of these single-family neighborhoods that we have throughout Durham and turn them into something better? And I think this moves us in the right direction, so I appreciate that. Do you have something? Okay. With that, I would accept a motion at this time.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we take case Z2200030, the American Village Townhomes, to be forwarded to the City Council with a favorable recommendation.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Morgan, seconded by Commissioner Baker. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, may we have the roll call vote?
Chair Amendolia,
Yes.
Vice Chair Cameron,
Yes.
Commissioner Baker,
Yes.
Commissioner Shigaris,
Yes.
Commissioner Cutright,
Yes.
Commissioner Harrod,
Yes.
Commissioner McIver,
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan,
Yes.
Commissioner Cease,
Yes.
Commissioner Valentine,
Yes.
Commissioner Carmen Williams,
Yes.
Commissioner Zuri Williams.
Yes.
Passes unanimously.
It's been a minute. Thank you. Appreciate the applicants. Thank you, staff. With that, we're going to move to our last zoning map change of the evening. This is case Z2200034, 1907 South Miami Boulevard. We'll begin with the staff presentation.
Okay. As mentioned, this is case Z22034, 1907 South Miami Boulevard for proposed zoning map change. The proposal is located at 1907 South Miami Boulevard. The site is located within the suburban development tier and is within city limits. The proposal includes one parcel which totals 0.178 acres that is currently zoned residential suburban 20. The applicant is proposing to add a transitional office overlay to allow an office use on the property. The existing future land use map designation is office, and the proposal is consistent with this designation. Lastly, this proposal is a straight rezoning with no text or graphic development plan included in the proposal. As mentioned, this existing zoning is residential suburban 20 with a mix of uses and zoning designations along this portion of South Miami Boulevard. The aerial map shows the general location of the site and surrounding development. There is some mix of uses and amenities within a mile of the site, and there are also transit stops within a mile of the site. A neighborhood meeting was held in accordance with UDO requirements on May 9, 2022. No social pinpoint survey responses were provided, and staff determines that this request is consistent with the comprehensive plan and other adopted ordinances and policies. The proposal meets the intent of the residential suburban districts, which allow a limited number of non-residential uses. And lastly, the proposal meets the intent of the transitional office overlay, which does allow the orderly transition of land use from residential to a smaller scale office while maintaining a residential appearance. And staff and the applicant are available to answer any questions.
Thank you. Going to open the public hearing. We'll begin with the applicant presentation. You'll have 10 minutes.
Good evening, Chair Amendolia, Vice Chair Cameron, and members of the Planning Committee. My name is Keenan Condor, and I live at 610 West Morgan Street here in Durham. I'm a lifelong Durham resident, and I'm here representing Mr. Gregory Dockery in the back. Mr. Dockery is a certified alcohol and drug abuse counselor registrant, and he's currently working as the operations director and group facilitator at Genesis Substance Abuse Services. Today, Mr. Dockery is requesting the application of the transitional office overlay to a small property at 1907 South Miami Boulevard. This site is intended to be Genesis's new RTP location, where Mr. Dockery intends to provide substance abuse counseling services. The transitional office overlay is necessary to allow for that use. Now, before I stress the importance of Mr. Dockery's work, I want to first discuss a few of the land use considerations. First, as the staff said, this is probably one of the best examples in our city where the transitional office overlay is appropriate. The site fronts a major road, South Miami. The building has a predominantly residential property appearance and building scale, something that Mr. Dockery intends to continue. Additionally, this appropriate transition between the residential uses behind this site and, of course, South Miami. And finally, the proposed use is consistent with the future land use designation. Next, I want to emphasize what I think a lot of you already know, which is the importance of the work of professionals like Mr. Dockery. Earlier this year, the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services determined that in 2020, 9 North Carolinians died each day from a drug overdose, and early data has suggested that this number increased in 2021. Both overdose deaths and the recent increases have been disproportionately affecting historically marginalized communities. This is a statewide tragedy, and Durham is a part of this, unfortunately. In order to address this sad trend, it is important that we as a community support efforts of professionals like Mr. Dockery to extend the reach of overdose prevention, harm reduction, and substance abuse treatment services. We hope that this agenda item can increase the number of community-based treatment centers in Durham. Mr. Dockery's Substance Abuse Center at 1907 South Miami Boulevard would provide a potentially life-saving resource to those in our Durham community. Therefore, we respectfully ask for your approval on this agenda item. We thank you for your consideration, and I'm available to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. No one else has signed up to speak on this case. If there's anyone who would like to speak for or against, please come to the podium or raise your hand in the Zoom meeting. Okay, seeing none. Is there any commissioner comment or question? Yeah, Vice Chair Cameron.
Yeah, I mean, it's right across the street from an elementary school. How are you going to navigate that?
So I think your question is how will we navigate that? And what do you, can you mind clarifying that for me?
Just children across the street from the center, are they going to see anything, require explanation of what's going on in the treatment center across the street, things like that?
I'm not sure if that will be necessary. The treatment center will be outpatient and will be inside the building. Mr. Dockery will be providing, as well as other members of Genesis, will be providing outpatient counseling to substance abuse, people who suffer from substance abuse addiction and alcohol addiction. I think the importance of this site is that it is very close to public transportation. That's one of the primary reasons why Mr. Dockery chose this site. So I think despite maybe a potential con of the location, the benefit of being close to public transportation, I think outweighs that and makes this site really optimal for what Mr. Dockery intends to use it for.
Yeah, and I will speak a little to that. So I have the benefit of being married to a mental health counselor. And so when you say outpatient, that's very meaningful to me, actually, because that is exactly what my partner does. And so I think I think there might be a concern that people actively in crisis may be coming to the center and that potentially creating some risk to students nearby. But I think the fact that this is outpatient, it's going to be people who are going about their day-to-day life and they need someone to continue talking to and working through with that. And if there was anybody with a certain level of extremity, my guess, given the practices that I know, is that a lot of that would be referred out to other locations that have specialties for higher levels of care. So to me, I don't think that's a concern for this site, but I appreciate the question. Any other questions or comments?
I'd just like to echo Vice Chair Cameron's concerns about the location across the street from the daycare center and then down the road from the elementary school and the park. But if it is an outpatient facility, I'm assuming there's not going to be any controlled substances on the site. Or if there is, are there going to be extra security measures?
So I can't imagine why there would be controlled substances on the site. I mean, it is counseling. I think there will be folks that do suffer from addiction there. But the purpose of the counseling is to help them get over that. So I don't want to speculate to whether Mr. Dockery's security measures, but I can assume they're very adequate. But I think it's also important to note that this neighborhood, one of the reasons why this center is planned for this neighborhood is because there are so many people who suffer from addiction and substance abuse problems in this area already. And so, unfortunately, folks that live in this neighborhood might be familiar with that already. And so it's important that we provide this community-based treatment center for folks that are already there and suffer.
Commissioner, oh, sorry.
That's interesting that you point out that there's so many people already in the area suffering. My parents lived right down the road from this particular area. We moved to the Bethesda area 40 years ago when we first relocated to North Carolina. And I mean, I guess things have changed. So, I mean, the proposal was to serve people in the RTP area. Are there that many people in the RTP area, or is this just, you're talking Bethesda specifically? Or are there going to be people coming in from outside?
Well, it's folks in the greater Durham area. I mean, Genesis has a location in downtown Durham. So this is part of this location is to facilitate people in that area of Durham, farther east from downtown. But again, one of the benefits of this site is that it will be close to public transportation. And so folks who are reliant on public transportation will be able to come to this site. So it is not necessarily for folks that just walk to the site. I don't want to make any statements that suggest that maybe there's greater proclivity of addiction in this area, but we know that in Durham there is significant substance abuse sufferers, and this site is to help meet the needs of that community.
Commissioner Carmen Williams.
Thank you, Chair. I echo some of the same concerns as my fellow commissioners in terms of the location of this site, not necessarily because of the elementary school or the daycare, but because there's already a site in downtown Durham and it would be on the public line of transportation, and it's going to be a counseling service. And with that withstanding, I do have concerns of those who may need to seek counseling and their arrival to this location, and not just in terms of the school, but as well as the residences that are in this area and the amount of traffic that is also in this area, and also being quite familiar with Durham and the crisis in which I see this. And with it being a one-stop shop, I would not be opposed to perhaps this being proposed near the corner of Linwood and Fayetteville, where such services are grossly needed in high demand without a requirement of rezoning. So I think that the concerns that we have are adequate and not narrow-sighted and not too short-sighted the good work that this obviously does, and there is a need. I also think that there are greater concerns beyond the consideration of placing such an establishment in an area as heavily traveled, both by pedestrians as well as public transportation, without consideration for the existing conditions that are in this area, as well as making sure that the hours of operation line up, as well as referral services, availability of emergency services should they be needed. I think that those considerations and questions should be brought to the table and discussed as well. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Sorry. Commissioner Cutright.
Appreciate it, Chair. And maybe you can help me understand. I think that some of this work has already been or had been previously happening in this area, and there's a need to sort of right the ship and make sure we're operating with the proper use overlay. And so I think that's been happening, and it has been without incident, is my understanding. But is that correct?
So Mr. Dockery has owned this site, but he has not been conducting these services for some time.
Got it. You know, as the expert, as Mr. Dockery is sort of the expert here in this area, I would imagine that you know, he would sort of know where these services are needed, and be able to pick a site that sort of fits with that. So I don't necessarily have the same concerns from a location standpoint, particularly given the services he's providing, in the case that as Chair Mendolia mentioned, there are people actively in crisis. There are, places like Healing with Care and other, hospitals and things for people to reach out to. So I don't share those same concerns, and I appreciate the work that's being done.
Commissioner Valentine.
Yes, Mr. Dockery, excuse me. I have a appreciation for the work that you do as well. I have a mental health background myself. But I was interested in knowing whether or not you've conducted some type of needs assessment with respect to using this site for the services that you're going to provide that are needed in our community. Is it all right to speak from here?
First of all, thank you all for giving me the opportunity to come. Yes, there was a previous provider there, Costran. That provider is no longer in the area. The state I've been in contact with the state who does our licensure. So I do know that there is a need there, yes, sir, to answer your question. And also, if I could address Ms. Cameron's question as well in regards to the kids or the church that's across the street from where the house is. These clients that we see, they're not requiring hospitalization or anything like that. These clients that I'm seeing are coming mainly who have DWIs, who are trying to get license restoration. These clients come through the court system. And so when they come to my facility, we do an intake, a comprehensive clinical assessment, a thorough assessment to determine the appropriate level of treatment according to the ASAM criteria. So I have children, so I certainly understand the concern, but safety is our utmost priority. And so it's not a situation wherein you would have to worry about a client doing anything to a child or anything like that. The other piece to it is that they are on the bus line. These clients don't have a license. That's the reason they're coming to see me, so that I can put them in position to get their license restored.
Thank you, Mr. Dockery. Other questions or comments? Commissioner Cease.
Yes, thank you. First of all, thank you very much for the work you do. And thank you for identifying so clearly with the presentation early on many of the kind of background items you provided. Your last answer about the clients who would most likely be using this particular facility raises a concern that I have regarding proximity to transit. And it's not so much your problem, but it is the condition of South Miami. If people are using transit to come there, presumably one way or the other, they are crossing South Miami for the return trip home, perhaps. Is that a fair?
No, there are bus lines on both sides.
I understand, but is it reasonably likely that the need to cross is occurring either coming or going? Detail, all right. My point is that from a land use perspective, this is a service that's needed. From a context perspective, I think this is a very dangerous place, and regardless of what's been happening there, and it's a dangerous place for many of the uses that are there for people who are dependent on transit. When I say many of the uses, employees working at the schools, employees working at the church and the daycare, whoever isn't privileged or of the right age or of the right health or of the right circumstances to be able to drive here is really a diminished citizen in this location. And that doesn't call out, I think, an item for you to address. It's an item for city staff to address, for city leadership to address, for Public Works and Engineering, as I know my friend Earlene Thomas hears what I'm saying and understands this as well. It's really a challenge for us as a community to be able to provide adequate public spaces and means for people who do not have adequate or do not have access to a car to get around to their needs, and one of which is the need that you're addressing with your proposal. So I support what you're doing, but I really just wanted to raise that issue, as much for the elected officials as for anyone else. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Dockery, thank you for your work. I really appreciate you and what you're doing, and I know you are not a planning specialist. You have other specialties, and so I hope this conversation doesn't feel like a rejection of your specific proposal as much as a commentary on some of the broader planning issues and concerns in Durham. We see things on a side-by-side basis that raise questions about past decisions that have been made pretty frequently. And I think most of us sound like we're probably in support of this because of the work that you're doing and the necessity for it. So just wanted to make that clear. I'm definitively in favor of it. With that, seeing no other questions or comments, can I get a motion at this time?
Mr. Chair, move to send Z2200034 forward to the City Council with a favorable recommendation.
Seconded.
Moved by Commissioner Baker, seconded by Commissioner Morgan. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, may we have the roll call vote?
Yes, Chair Amendolia,
Yes.
Vice Chair Cameron.
No.
Commissioner Baker.
Yes.
Commissioner Shigaris,
No.
Commissioner Cutright,
Yes.
Commissioner Harrod,
Yes.
Commissioner McIver,
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan,
Yes.
Commissioner Cease,
Yes.
Commissioner Valentine,
Yes.
Commissioner Carmen Williams,
Yes.
Commissioner Zuri Williams.
Yes.
It passes 10-2.
Thank you. Thanks to the applicant, thanks to staff. We're coming right up on our 2-hour recess for closed captioning, and I think this next agenda item is probably going to take more than 9 minutes. So I am going to go ahead and call our recess, and we will reconvene at 7:35 p.m.
So Michelle, let's start with you. What does language access actually mean?
So language access means providing individuals who are limited English proficient or who don't speak English reasonable and equitable access to our city services and programs.
So Pilar, what are some of the challenges that people face when they're trying to conduct day-to-day business or just live their lives when there are language barriers?
Yeah, you can imagine trying to live the day-to-day when you don't understand anything that is happening around in the different systems. Talking about health system, education system, regularly going to the grocery stores to buy stuff and you don't know what is happening.
The Durham Station Rehabilitation Project is officially underway. The project will involve improvements to the bus island, including additional shade and weather protection through enhanced canopies, additional public restrooms, integrated seating, and a new customer service and security kiosk. The number of bus bays will also be increased from 20 to 28, which will allow for more transit service. While Durham Station users should expect to be able to see the construction activities taking place, every effort will be made to ensure that services are minimally impacted. The City Council approved a $1.5 million design services contract and a $90,000 pre-construction services contract for the project during its December 5th meeting. The project is supported by a $10.8 million federal grant that our transportation department won last year, as well as a local match of $2.7 million from the Durham County Transit Plan. The entire project is expected to be finished in early 2025.
Oh, good.
We don't always agree who to pull for on game day, but we all can agree that litter is bad for North Carolina.
I was looking for an opportunity, and
and an old friend of mine suggested that I apply at Go Durham. The community really relies on us, on Go Durham public transportation.
Well, I like driving a bus because of the friendly culture. I love it in the morning when people greet me, good morning, they give me a friendly wave, they appreciate you. And that goes a long way being a bus driver in Go Durham.
Anything can be achieved here. You can come in at the bottom and you will be able to excel in fairly a short amount of time. Here, I started as an operator and I'm here now as an operator training specialist. So as long as you stick to it, you can excel.
The perfect candidate that would excel at Go Durham is someone with tenacity, someone with drive, someone who wants to make a difference for their community.
You have to be people-oriented, you have to be experienced, and you have to be on hands, ready to go, but with the proper training, it's just like driving a car.
So as a new driver with road training, come in and you see me and I'm gonna make sure you have all the tools to succeed.
They give you a lot of input and they work with you step by step. So you won't be alone in this.
To anyone considering working for Go Durham, you won't regret it. Please come, please apply. We would love to have you join the Go Durham team.
Every year, 7 million 911 calls are made in North Carolina.
911, what's your emergency?
Will you answer the call? Every second counts. You can be that lifeline. People in crisis look to us for assistance. We provide guidance and support until physical help can arrive at the scene. Join us and make a difference in our community. Be the calm in the chaos. Be the voice in the dark. It's the hardest career you'll ever love. Will you answer the call? Discover more at it.nc.gov/911careers.
See a pothole? There's an app for that. Missed pickup? There's an app for that. Need to set up water service? There's an app for that too. Introducing the One Call app. Report your service requests online on your schedule. Just download for free from the App Store or Google Play Store. Then sign up and start using it to report problems, check the status of your service request, or just find out more information. Try the Durham One Call app today.
Did you know the City of Durham has interpretation and translation services available? The city adopted a language access plan to provide language services and help non-English speakers have access to city services and programs without a language barrier. Through the city's language access plan, residents have the right to request interpretation and translation services free of charge, receive translation of vital documents and emergency communications in Spanish, and submit complaints of language discrimination or on the failure to adequately provide services in accordance with the city's language access plan policy. For more information on the city's language access efforts, visit durhamnc.gov/languageaccess. ¿Sabía que la ciudad de Durham cuenta con servicios de interpretación y traducción? La ciudad adoptó un plan de acceso al idioma para ofrecer servicios lingüísticos y ayudar a que las personas que no hablan inglés puedan tener acceso a los servicios y programas de la ciudad sin la barrera del idioma. Por medio del plan de acceso al idioma, los habitantes tienen derecho a solicitar sin costo alguno servicios de interpretación y traducción, recibir la traducción de documentos importantes y de comunicaciones de emergencia en español, presentar una denuncia de discriminación por motivos de idioma o por no recibir servicios de manera adecuada de acuerdo con la política del plan de acceso al idioma de la ciudad. Para recibir más información sobre la labor de la ciudad relacionada con el acceso al idioma, visita durhamnc.gov/acceso.
Here's some tips to ensure that your garbage and recycling gets picked up. 1. Your cart should be put out for collection before 6 a.m. on your collection day. 2. Your cart should be at least 3 feet from all other objects such as mailboxes, telephone poles, fire hydrants, trees, and other carts. 3. Your cart should be no more than 3 feet from the curb. 4. No vehicles should be blocking your carts. The mechanical arms on our trucks need direct access to your carts and cannot reach around vehicles. To find more information about garbage and recycling pickups, go to this web address.
I count on Durham for awesome adventures and great bike shops.
I know I can count on Durham for great sports in every season.
I always count on Durham for amazing cultural events.
I count on Durham for its innovative ideas and the determination to bring them to life.
I count on Durham for community and a place for everyone.
I count on Durham to do a good job and to celebrate our success.
Did you know that the City of Durham counts on these individuals? In a city of more than 260,000 people, you're looking at residents who are making their voices count, people who care about the past, the present, and the future of the City of Durham. And you know what? It doesn't matter how mature
or young,
whether you're passionate about the economy,
the arts scene,
or the plight of the homeless.
In fact, we have nearly 30 boards, committees, and commissions that you can participate on.
The requirements are to be a Durham City resident and be current on your Durham City and county taxes.
Durham is your home. You can count on Durham to be there for you.
Can we count on you to be there for our city?
Can we count on you to be there for Durham?
Can we count on you to be there for our city?
Can we count on you to be there for Durham?
So come on, get involved. Apply today. We can count on Durham, but can Durham count on you?
The Durham City Council meetings and Planning Commission meetings are now available to live stream on all devices via the City of Durham social media accounts. To watch, simply go to City of Durham NC on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter. Devices include phones, tablets, laptops, desktops, streaming boxes and sticks, and smart TVs. The easiest way to view the live stream on smart TVs and streaming devices, such as the Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire TV, is via the YouTube app. Now you can follow along with the latest developments in the Durham community at dinner, your kids' game, the mall, in bed, during a breather, in the bathtub, and even on the International Space Station.
And I have long legs, too, so I'll watch out.
I don't know what it is. We used to call my mom a tumbler before she died. So, and ever since she died, I used to call her
Did read this whole thing.
mom a tumbler. Yeah. Oh, yeah, thank you, too.
Okay, we're going to return from recess now. Hope you all enjoyed your extra minute. We're going to move to our next set of items, which are our public hearings for text amendments to the Unified Development Ordinance. We will start with case TC2200031, Simplifying Codes for Affordable Development. I'm going to turn it first to staff for any comments.
Yes, Grace Smith with the Planning Department. The staff does not have a formal presentation. You have our staff report. And I do have a colleague here with me, the other assistant director for the department, Bo Dobrinsky. He's here to help field some of the technical questions you may have. The impacts of this particular amendment, if approved, would primarily impact the work that his group does in the planning department as far as uses by right and development by right. So he's here on standby to help us walk through any issues or questions you may have, and I'm here as well, and I'll let you open it up and proceed as you feel fit.
Thank you. So I made this same statement when this came to us in September, and I want to reiterate it now. This is a privately initiated text amendment, which means this proposal was not written by planning staff. Planning staff has certainly been involved in the process, as they ought to be, to make sure they understand what the proposal is and what the potential impacts of that proposal is. However, this proposal is owned by the applicants, not by planning staff. So I just wanted to make that clear out of the gate. There's also, I've seen commentary about the timeline of this proposal, and the timeline, as it is with most things, was dictated by the Joint City-County Planning Committee. They reviewed this case twice and made clear that they wanted it to move forward after the second meeting. So just wanted to make those two things clear before getting into this proposal. With that, I'm going to open the public hearing, and we will begin with the applicant presentation if they have one. They'll have 10 minutes to provide their presentation.
Hi, thank you. My name is Dave Olverson. I am the project manager with the applicant team. I am a graduate of UNC's planning school and have been working on this project. I'm actually, having learned a great deal from UNC's planning school, I'm actually very honored to be working on this project. I really believe in it. I think it's pretty powerful. I also wanted to thank, as Commissioner Amendolia mentioned, planning staff. They've worked really, really hard with us on this, and we've had a lot of back and forth, and their comments have certainly, in our opinion, made this proposal better. We wanted to thank the Planning Commission as well, and especially the folks on the committee that was put together. They came back with some great comments as well. Again, we think that, we feel that those have made this proposal a lot better. So we're excited to bring this forward with you today. I'm going to step aside and let a couple of other folks speak. First, Jim Bellinger with Habitat. Wanted to invite him up.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity. Habitat for Humanity of Durham is supportive of this proposal. We are probably the only affordable home ownership entity building significant homes in the community. And we're facing headwinds: gentrification, inflation, rising cost of land, the number of people moving in. They're all big issues that this commission and we can't really address. But these proposed amendments help. These are the things that will help us build homes and solve problems for us. And so that's why we're supportive of this. So thank you.
Next, I want to invite Tiffany Elder up to speak, who is a small practitioner developer here in Durham.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name's Tiffany Elder. I live here in Durham. I'm here to ask for your support in moving this text amendment moving forward. I am a realtor and licensed general contractor here in Durham. I also serve as co-chair of The Collective, which is a consortium of Black real estate professionals here in our city, developers, owners, et cetera, here in Durham. And we're citizens who touch real estate on a daily basis and who want to continue to help build the city and house its citizens. And our members have been active in helping to shape these text amendments to help ensure that they're beneficial for the community. Durham needs these reforms because Durham's current zoning, it hurts small property owners and small entrepreneurs in multiple ways. Things like setbacks and parking regulations create restrictions that require substantial time and money to get through the process for a variance or a rezoning, even for smaller projects. And projects that would otherwise get done by small local owners and developers like myself and like my colleagues, therefore get set to the side. The properties sell to larger, better funded buyers, and opportunities for local ownership slowly disappear. And this text amendment helps to resolve many of these issues. Essentially, this is pretty much a small business bill for Durham. In essence, it allows for more affordable housing, more small-scale retail, more locally owned development, and all of this in a market that currently has national awareness and a lot of competition from large outside developers. These reforms are critical for the folks I work with and for Durham, and given this, we hope that you will support it. Thank you.
And finally, I want to invite Steve Toller up. Steve is part of the applicant team and has done a great job coordinating a lot of the public engagement.
Thank you, Dave. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Steve Toller. I'm at 8709 Millhouse Lane in Durham County. I assisted in the community engagement efforts for this. You have before you a report that reflects our efforts, which are ongoing. I've had some experience in community engagement in Durham. I chaired the Durham Chamber of Commerce, the RDU Airport Authority. I've chaired 2 very successful Durham County-wide bond referendums and provided guidance on the 2 recent bond referendums, all highly successful. I chaired the 2011 education sales tax referendum, another successful effort. The community engagement efforts for this proposal have been as broad and as deep as any that I've ever been involved in. Is it a perfect process? No, certainly not. Any effort undertaken by man is never perfect. Has our effort to have broad community engagement been shown? I think it has. Are our hearts in the right place? Yes, they are. Did we shy away from any individuals or groups that may not agree with our proposal? Absolutely not. In fact, we solicited feedback from individuals and groups who had serious questions and concerns and objections. My teammate, Dave Overson, who joined me in our engagement efforts, has experienced this and has some reflections on our feedback efforts. And I'll let Dave reflect on those, but I appreciate your consideration of this. It's really serious for Durham. We need affordable housing. We need the ability to, as you all, I think, stated earlier this evening, make things smoother for good projects and good efforts, and this is one of them. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. And yeah, I'll just end by saying we have appreciated the feedback we've gotten. As Steve mentioned, great feedback from the public, from the planning subcommittee, planning commission subcommittee, and from staff. we have we've incorporated most of those changes, well, most of the changes suggested by the subcommittee, as well as changes from those other sources into this proposal, and we honestly think it makes the proposal better. So it's been a really great process in that regard. And with that, I will end my time, and we are here to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. With that, we will move to our public comment. Getting the sign-up sheet brought over to me now. Okay, I see people on the Zoom call that I anticipate are going to want to speak on this. So if you are on Zoom and want to speak, go ahead and start raising your hand there. As far as people who signed up to speak in person, I'm just going to read off the list of names that I have, and then if you will step to the podium, and when you come to the podium, please state your name and address, and we have a mixture of folks, so please state whether you are for or against up front, and then make your comments. Everybody will have 2 minutes to provide comments. So the list I have is Tom Miller, Sherry Rosenfeld, Devin Salo, Brian Vaughn, Cliff Creedle, Topher Thomas, and Mimi Kessler. Grace, do we have the timer ready? 2 minutes, yes. Great. Tom, you may begin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the commission. My name is Tom Miller. I live at 1110 Virginia Avenue in Durham. I'm a lifelong Durham resident. For 40 years in my professional career as an attorney, I've been involved in real estate and land use regulation, 30 of those years as the head of the real estate regulatory section of the North Carolina Attorney General's office. I've made a very thorough review of this proposal, and I'm urging you to oppose it. I have attended some of the public engagement meetings because this proposal is 80 pages and so big. None of them actually reach down to any of the details. I have given you tonight a written summary of some of the things that concern me, but there's no way in 2 minutes that I can reach down to the details that I think that need to be addressed. But I will say this, with regard to affordability, which is in the title, I don't perceive this as being affordable. Certainly there are a couple of programs that in certain circumstances do advance affordability in a flawed way. But for the most part, these proposals allow developers to build more and bigger. And the best single example I can give you, in the EHC, we created a small housing type, 1,200 square feet. If this passes, those small houses can go up to 2,000 square feet and include a garage. We cannot regulate house prices, but we can regulate house sizes. The virtue of the small house option is that we create 1,200 square foot houses. We lower the bottom rung on the wealth creation ladder. This raises that rung higher, excludes more people from building personal and family wealth by making it harder to buy houses. A 2,000 square foot house with a garage is going to be more unobtainable than a 1,200 square foot house. So those are my comments. I urge you to look at my document. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. Next we have Sherry Rosenfeld.
Hi there, Sherry Zan Rosenthal, 2205 Wilson Street, Durham. I'm against this proposal. Some of you may know me as having been Deputy City Attorney. I originated the affordable housing program and the legal structuring for the city of Durham. I was also the developer of Eno Commons co-housing, a prototypical environmental housing development of 22 homes in North Durham. This Jim Anthony proposal says that it simplifies in order to gain affordable housing, but there's nothing simple about it. And like Tom said, I don't think it's going to generate any affordable housing at all in actuality. It trades on a sense of desperation about the need for more diverse and affordable housing types. And it follows a playbook that has been set out by the national industry associations of amping up this desperation and then saying that the answer is deregulation. In fact, by removing any gateways of approval for housing, we remove the only leverage that right now our elected officials do have in gaining affordable housing. This will be as of by right. And once you open up that Pandora's box of allowing all these changes by right, if you do not like the result, putting it back in the box is going to be very difficult because of the vested legal rights that will be involved. This scare tactic is in service of policies that actually result in an undermining of strategic growth and affordable housing. This text amendment will allow subdivision, demolition processes, and destruction of historic setbacks. And we're right in the middle of a comprehensive plan process that is going to substantially change our UDO. Why would we allow this extensive changes to our ordinance
your 2 minutes are up.
Without any official public process? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Devin Solo. I live at 603 Lion Tree Lane in Durham. I'm a small business owner, and while this text amendment supports affordable housing, I want to highlight that it also supports small businesses. It does not help large funds such as BlackRock or other large out-of-town investors with short-term profits in mind. Rather, it creates more accessibility for people who are here and care about the future of Durham to control Durham's development. Without this amendment, it is simply too difficult in many cases for local companies or individuals to develop and build here. Additionally, the proposed amendment helps small businesses purchase and own their own properties rather than simply being tenants. Supporting this amendment would be support for local jobs and affordable housing development. Thank you.
Hello, Planning Commission. My name is Topher Thomas. I'm a teacher here in Durham. I also run a small equitable housing company called Quorum Houses. And our mission at Quorum is to break cycles of injustice, economic and racial injustice, through creative affordable housing. And this text amendment will enable more creative affordable housing development. All I do is ADUs and small incremental development. And I build small because if you build smaller, you can sell things for cheaper. And if things are cheaper, they become more affordable. That's the definition of affordable. And this text amendment will enable my team to do that, and to do that with more ease, to do that with less red tape and less hassle. It'll enable us to create more affordable home ownership opportunities by being able to segment lots in smaller ways. I think it'll do a lot of good. Now, it's not perfect, and nothing is, but clearly what is not working. We know the issues, and we know that they are getting worse. And so this is a step. It is not the only step by any means. We need a host of things, but it's a step in the right direction. And so I hope that you'll consider passing it. Thank you.
Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. Brian Vaughn, 1024 Starlight Drive, speaking in affirmation of the proposal. I'm a third-year Master of Landscape Architecture and Environmental Planning student at NC State. And this summer, I worked part-time with the applicant creating site plans for the parcels in largely the urban tier of Durham. One of the most memorable parts of this experience was learning how the spatial constraints of Durham's existing setbacks, parking requirements, and lot minimums are applied. At present, many of these requirements provide a significant barrier for Durham-based designers and builders, who you've heard from before, to produce the housing and small-scale commercial space that our residents and entrepreneurs desperately need. This text amendment will significantly reduce these barriers. Commissioners and members of the public, I encourage you to refer to pages 89 to 93 of the agenda items attachment. As proposed, there are 22 points of alignment with the text amendment and the comprehensive plan's goals and objectives. I'm going to highlight 2 of them. Number 5, SCAD enables more opportunities for middle-income home ownership by allowing for small homes and building ADUs first. So by adjusting minimum lot requirements and setbacks, Durham-based builders will create more homes and ADUs for thousands who seek to become homeowners and renters here. Number 12, SCAD eliminates parking minimums, a necessary step to creating walkable neighborhoods that aren't dominated by parking lots. So requiring business owners to provide on-site parking spaces in walkable neighborhoods is pretty much the most efficient way to ensure that entrepreneurs won't start these businesses in the first place. The text amendment's elimination of parking minimums allows entrepreneurs to focus on building businesses and not parking lots. To end on a personal note, I've lived in Durham since summer of 2021, lived in North Carolina for 7 years. I rent a home with my partner. I want to become a homeowner here in Durham. I'm concerned that without the checks changes that SCAD proposes, the only affordable starter home that we'll be able to afford is in Mebane, Apex, or Fuquay-Varina. There are thousands of folks who'd like to live an urban lifestyle in Durham. Let's align the rules with these desires. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Mimi Kessler. I usually talk to you on Zoom, so it's nice to see all of you. I live at 1418 Woodland Drive. If you heard the pitch that this group gives for why they want to do this text amendment, you would totally sign up for it. You would just think it was the best thing ever. The problem is the 100+ pages of detail. And I don't think it's realistic to get rid of all parking requirements. Maybe we should look at it, maybe we should reduce it. But getting rid of all parking for either commercial or for residential doesn't make sense to me. There are also reasons for buffers, so we need the buffers. So again, it's something that I feel like that we need to have a longer conversation and a more detailed conversation about these things. I want to support small business. I want those small business owners to be able to own their shop and live above it. You know, that's one of the things that they talk about in the pitch. But I don't know how to do that. But I think the planning department does. And I think that there are some good things that are in the proposal, but there's some other things that are just too broad and too far ranging. So I do support the idea of streamlining things, but I have not been able to figure out how this particular proposal is going to help the small businesses and streamline the process. So I guess that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Alan Sprite. I apologize, I didn't sign up on the list. I'm a little new to this. Is it okay if I make a couple comments despite that? Thank you. So I've lived in the Triangle since 1968 in Durham for almost 20 years. I'm a member of several different communities, including a group of pickup soccer players from all over the world, to being a small business owner that has focused on historic preservation and green building for many years. I'm in favor of this amendment for all the reasons that have already been stated. I don't think I need to go in great detail about those, but I think just to highlight a couple of things, I feel like, you know, there's no proposal that's perfect. I think this, on balance, solves more problems than creates. I believe it can be complementary to other efforts that are going on and should continue. I feel like, I'm confident that that this can increase housing stock and also increase the amount of housing stock for a given neighborhood that is on balance or on average less than the median house price in a given neighborhood. I also feel like this may or should lead to kind of higher density mixed use development, which kind of prioritizes people over cars, reduces things like food deserts, increases walkability of communities, and kind of, in general, vibrant, high-density neighborhoods. And then the final thing I'd just say is Durham is a living organism. We, change is the only constant, and with the ability to grow, adapt, we'll continue to become a vibrant, healthy community. And those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Cliff Cradle. I'm with Cradle Engineering. I can be found at 204 East Markham Avenue, Durham, as where we have been for over 100 years serving this community in civil engineering and land surveying. I'm not physically quite that old, but I have spent my entire life doing this. Worked for big developers, small developers, and whoever wanted to do work in this town. And I will tell you, I've worked on several different ordinances, subdivision ordinances, zoning ordinances. I've seen a little of everything in this town over the years. I have never seen the growth in downtown like I've seen over the past 10 years. And I was shocked by it, and now I'm just unbelievably pleased by it. But if you notice, a lot of that growth in downtown Durham, although it was originated by our Durham natives, it's not necessarily all Durham. Hopefully the people occupying them will be Durham, but a lot of those developers didn't come from here. And this text amendment and the housing ordinances we've done over the past few years has really opened the door to a lot of development for the people of Durham that live downtown Durham. It's keeping us from doing urban sprawl, and it's concentrating more development in downtown Durham, and that is phenomenal. It's generated a lot of excitement over the past few years, and I have actually been a part of the development of some of these lots, and am very pleased with what I've seen with the people and how it's affected their lives. And so I will say I am definitely a proponent for this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. No one else is currently in the queue at the podium to speak, but we do have several people who have indicated via Zoom they would like to speak, so we're going to start going through our virtual attendees. First up is Donna Steinbeck. Donna, you will have 2 minutes.
Okay, my name is Donna Steinbeck. I live at 4825 Jimmy Rogers Road, Durham, North Carolina, and I'm a lifelong resident of Durham. I support a quicker and more affordable housing structures and amendments, but I do not believe this is the final answer. I think a lot of the parts of it are in the right direction, but I also support the existing concerns and analysis that the planning department has mentioned in their overview for this. I attended public hearings at West Club, and I've been at this joint city county planning commission when it's been presented. And I have more questions than I have answers for, and this is already a very large document. One of the areas that specifically is of concern is about changing that require the rental units affordability for only 5 years, while in other zones and with other UDOs, it's talking about affordable housing for 30 years. Why so short a period? If we want this to really work, I think some of these codes opens the gate for some bad things to happen because they're so broad and can be misinterpreted. And so I will continue to support the planning department and their analysis for this. And if they're concerned I'm really concerned, and I probably have some more that they, haven't articulated. So I thank you for your time, and I hope this does develop into a better plan.
Thank you. Sorry, hit the wrong unmute button. Thank you, Donna. Next, we'll move to Bonita Green.
Good evening, Chair Amendolia and fellow sitting commissioners. My name is Bonita Green. I reside at 831 Center Street, Durham, North Carolina, in the Merritt-Moore community. I'm the president of the Merritt-Moore Community Development Corporation and the Interneighborhood Council of Durham. For the purposes of this meeting, I'm speaking as a private citizen. For reasons that you have previously heard, I stand in opposition to the proposed text amendment changes to the UDO. Gentrification is intentional, not necessary. It is poor people being pushed out by development and progress. Justice has a geography, and equitable distribution of resources and services is a human right. So why is it that we treat cultural erasure as inevitable? I am calling on the entirety of Durham's planning community, elected officials, and policymakers to make the commitment to build people's capacity to stay in their homes, stay in their communities, and stay where they feel whole. This proposal is not about small builders, small scale retail, or affordable housing. It is about a group of developers who are seeking a tool that will allow them to increase their wealth, which will be to the detriment of Durham's lower wealth community. This proposal simply isn't ready, and I ask that you vote no. Thank you.
Thank you, Bonita. Up next, we have Brian Calloway.
All right, thank you, Commission. My name is Brian Calloway of 307 Gresham Avenue here in Durham, and I am opposed to this text amendment. I wanted to point out that this is basically the same group that brought us the expanding housing choices a couple years ago. I am very grateful to see that some of the supporters of the EHC that identified themselves as simply community members and spoke on that are now seemingly full-fledged, paid, presumably staff of the applicant pool. So I do appreciate that transparency this time around. But the Planning Commission correctly identified that the EHC would bring us accelerated gentrification. We've seen exactly that and displacement over the last few years. So I'm very concerned about where this text amendment may lead us. I also wanted to let you know that I did attend the August 30th public session that was held on the West Club in Walltown. Definitely felt like a token outreach event. We were told that this is a living document that, oh, we'll be meeting again, we'll be discussing this. And then 2 weeks later, they brought this text asking you to move it forward to council. So I appreciated the continuation that you gave this. But I did want to applaud our planning department because they identified a lot of nasty bathwater that's mixed in with these 75 pages of proposed text amendments. And I really don't care how many adorable baby benefits can come along with these problematic changes. I say throw it all out. Let the city do an actual public participation process to rewrite our UDO. So please don't let the fox guard the hen house. Regulatees should not be writing the regulations themselves, especially not in Durham. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Randall Linnell.
Good evening. I'm Randall Linnell. Business is at 502 Rigsby Avenue. I'm speaking in favor. We have a small design build business in Durham for coming up now on about 23 years. And while I fully support all the common sense provisions in this amendment, I'm just going to tell a quick story that supports the SCAD provision about stormwater management requirements for small businesses. The story's set in Creedmoor, not Durham, but the rules and context are almost exactly the same. Excuse me. My wife is a small-town veterinarian, and we built an animal hospital for her in Creedmoor. Our original plan was to buy a piece of land and build a new building. We did identify that parcel and made a deal to purchase. In due diligence, I solicited a proposal for the required stormwater management system. This was about 8 years ago, and the total was $350,000. And there's no way that a small business could support that cost. I looked for and found an existing building that we ultimately purchased and renovated, and the stormwater management was grandfathered in. We're very happy with this final result for her business. For the town, though, the result was not great. Dollar General bought the property, and built a store that is literally now the gateway to the town. Dollar General is an out-of-state corporation with deep pockets that could afford to pay for stormwater management. The building and parking are mashed onto the site, and the building features faux windows that open onto a concrete block wall. I'm not making this up. I drive by this building every day. That is an unintended consequence of stormwater management requirements that squashes small businesses and limits smart and local new development. SCAD can eliminate this unintended consequence and support small local business.
Your 2 minutes are over.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Up next, we have Dan Bach.
Hi, my name is Dan Bach. I live at 205 Albemarle Street in Durham. I'm a software engineer. I'm not involved in housing development professionally, so I'm just an interested resident. I'm speaking in favor of this item. I'd in particular like to highlight the removal of parking mandates. We currently have parking minimums that make developers build more parking spots than they want. It imposes car dependency on the residents of new housing units, whether they want it or not, and makes housing more expensive to build. And of course, those costs get passed on to the renters or buyers of that housing. So it's bad for a lot of reasons. And this is our chance to get rid of it. All the other parts of this package are also quite sensible. It makes sense in a housing shortage to talk to the people who build housing and ask them why they're not building more. And in this case, they're giving us a detailed list of changes that would help them build more housing. I think they're all positive changes, and I hope you agree. I also think it's a good idea to do this in advance of the UDO process because the effects of changes like these are not predictable in advance. We don't know which of these provisions will be used more and which will be used less, just as we didn't know that for expanding housing choices, and we didn't know before Durham's affordable housing density bonus was created how often that would be used. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, we have Bob Chapman.
Hello, my name is Bob Chapman, and I live at 2525 Lanier Place in Durham. When I moved to Durham in 1965, our zoning ordinance was 16 pages long. It's grown and grown and grown. Sherry's a good friend, Tom's a friend. The lawyering has yielded about 2,000 pages when you count up all of the comp plan, reference guides, design standards, the manuals, and the UDO. More words than are in War and Peace or the King James Bible. It's obvious that this text amendment is lengthy, but it's 1/20th as long as what it's trying to amend for a positive result. When we did Trinity Heights for Duke, we had one goal, which was to build workforce housing for Duke employees that would be affordable. And it looked like the best way to do it would be to make something that looked like it was already there, that was compatible with the neighborhood. And we ran into a total brick wall. We had to do self-filed text amendments. I filed them, 12 separate text amendments. And that still didn't work. And finally, Steve Medlin, the former planning director, had to declare that we were a suburban cluster subdivision and count the streets surrounding the 2 city blocks that we're redeveloping behind East Campus as buffer, in order to let us simply put there the same type of house, the same lot sizes, the alleys, the setbacks, as had been there for a long, long, long time. And I think this text amendment is a very important step toward making it possible for Durham to get back to the good days.
Bob, your 2 minutes are over.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we have Mary Molina. Mary, are you able to unmute yourself?
Okay, can you hear me now? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay. My name is Mary Molina, and I live at 1410 Watts Street in Durham. I appreciate the people who spoke before me in opposition to this proposal, and I hope that you'll particularly pay attention to Bonita Green's statements. I'd like to go on record with my concern that we allow privately initiated text amendments and changes to our UDO to be sponsored by individuals who have commercial interests, when we have many people whose expertise is in the city planning who also reside in Durham. Jim Anthony is not simply a private individual looking to improve the prospects and opportunities he may desire for himself and his little plot of land somewhere. He is a commercial real estate developer whose proposed changes will open the floodgates to others who share his same agenda of building beyond our capacity to manage. And in his own shocking words at a recent meeting, he would like to gentrify the crime out of Durham. Perhaps Mr. Anthony partnered with Habitat to make his attempt to change public planning policy less offensive and to make it more palatable. But in what might be perceived as a payoff of land and money to Habitat to use their good name, that doesn't really make this partnership palatable. It suggests a questionable intent in my book. I urge the commission to say no to this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Eric Mixtertino.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. All right, wonderful. Yes, I'm Eric Mike Storino. I live on 117 South Driver Street in Durham. Been a resident of Durham for over 5 years. I'm a researcher at a human rights nonprofit by trade, so come here just as a concerned resident. I am a proponent of the changes to this plan. Specifically, if I understand them correctly, some of the provision changes to ADUs, the increasing from 800 to 1,200 square feet. I personally want to build an ADU in my backyard in order to provide an additional unit of affordable housing. Being able to get to 1,200 square feet will allow me to have a 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom house that could actually have a family instead of just a small family or a couple or a single person. And also, even more so, the compact neighborhood tier amendments. Where are the most places that make Durham, or when you go to any city that's beautiful, it's the old pre-war buildings that have those mixed use, that have lots of small landlords or businesses that own their businesses and people who live on top. Taking away the parking minimums, taking away those setback minimums can really create a much more dynamic Durham. And this is not a be-all end-all. There's still lots of work to do, and we have to have all hands on deck in order to create a more affordable, more beautiful, more vibrant Durham. But lots of changes within this amendment are a step in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Jim Anthony.
There we go. Well, thank you for guiding us through a process that frankly has been far more rewarding from my perspective than the last text amendment. group I did a few years ago. Yes, this is more complex, but for those who are concerned about 80 pages, when the next round happens, it's going to get really interesting, and it's probably 2 to 3 years away before any of that happens. Can Durham afford to wait that long to remove some of the obstacles that we're attempting to address? I want to say thank you, as many have said earlier, from the staff to the Planning Commission. You all are highest paid folks in the Triangle for the work that you do. And it's an honor to be a part of this team that's advancing something that we really believe can make a positive difference in Durham. As you just heard from Eric, Tom was not correct when he said that we were increasing the size of ADUs to 2,000 square feet. It's actually 1,200 square feet cap versus the 800. But I'll refrain from trying to defend myself on the other issues, and really appreciate the support.
Thank you. I see David Berger has raised their hand, and if there's anyone else who wants to speak on this, please line up at the podium or raise your hand in the Zoom meeting. David, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so hi, I live at 116 North Buchanan Boulevard in Durham. I'm a Durham resident. I'm not a developer at all, but I do teach about housing for a living. I also attended an outreach event in November on West Club that was very informative. I strongly support the text amendments. You know, we need housing of all types, and we need more commercial infill, we need more density, and the removal of parking minimums just to be more environmentally friendly and to allow this. Part of the reason for the lack of affordability is we're not using our land efficiently enough. This UDO might not be perfect, but it's definitely an improvement, and it helps on many dimensions. I urge you all to vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Okay, seeing none, turn it over to Commissioner comments and questions. Actually, sorry, apologies. First, so we established a committee comprised of 3 members, Vice Chair Cameron, who was the chair of the committee, and Commissioner Zuri Williams and Commissioner Cease, who reviewed these changes in details and have provided a report for us tonight. We will, so to be clear about the process, we will vote both on the specific text amendment changes before us, and we will also vote on whether or not we endorse the committee report. So there will be 2 votes on this item momentarily. But with that, I want to turn it over to Vice Chair Cameron to provide an overview of the committee's report.
Good evening, everyone. The SCAD Review Committee met twice, first on October 19th in person and again on December 1st via Zoom. And at the first meeting and the second meeting, the first meeting in particular, we made recommended changes. Some of those changes weren't made. When we met again, we have stood by those changes. In particular, we are in agreement with all of the staff recommended changes that are part of the agenda and the attachments tonight. Overall, there are numerous positive improvements to the ordinance that will enable development of more housing and more affordable housing in the city of Durham. Yet, several proposed changes are still problematic. And I'll note those as follows. Section 6.6.4.A.2. The committee does not support removing the requirements for affordable units to be evenly distributed and indistinguishable from market rate units, nor the removal of the compliance mechanism under the affordable housing bonus. The committee again requests that affordable housing have a time to run with the land. In other words, deed restrictions or covenants that restrict the use to affordable housing for a minimum of 30 years. The addition of residential units within industrial and industrial light districts has a very storied history of racial segregation. Black citizens were regulated to areas that were zoned industrial that allowed for overcrowding, poorly constructed housing, non-existent or inadequate city services, prostitution, taverns, and most importantly, polluting of air and water, which still have health implications to this day with the Black community. The committee does not support this portion of the proposed text amendment. The committee again requests the name to be changed from detached townhome to city home or another name for this housing type for multiple reasons, including avoiding conflict with the building code and other references throughout the ordinance. Proposed language referencing building separation for townhomes should also be removed to avoid conflating building code requirements with the zoning requirements. And that concludes the report.
Thank you. There are other commissioner comments or questions that anybody would like to make? Okay, so I will speak a little bit for myself, and I've had months to think about what I was going to say in this moment, and I still have no clue because there's just so much to say. I think I'm a person that tries to hold a lot of nuance, and so I will try to do that as best I can in this moment. To my core, one of the primary pieces of framing that impacts how I think about development and planning is the fact that real estate development does define how our cities look, and that is just a fact of reality. That is the world we live in a capitalist society, and planning is the way that we are able to put guardrails around that to make sure that our cities look the way we want them to look. And so I want to acknowledge that we often are working within systems that are broken, that we wish we didn't have to work within, and I think for me, this is one of them. From just a pure process standpoint, while I truly believe and recognize that developers need to be consulted when we are making changes to the UDO, I do take issue with them writing the code themselves, and I believe that's why we have local government staff. That said, this is the process we have, and so I have spent most of my energy focused on what do we do within that context. I know I can't change the entire structure right now, but I think I've tried to focus on what about this text amendment can we change and make better? And I think the committee report does a great job of that and speaks for itself. And my goal in this process is to not simply be saying no to a set of changes, but to be saying, we can get there, or yes, but, because there are items in here that I agree with the committee's report that need to just simply be changed. They're like the mere sight of residential uses and industrial zoning, just on its face, I can't get past that. And I appreciate the committee for calling that out and being specific as to why. So I really hope as this moves forward in the process that the care and the time that this commission, the committee, and planning staff has taken is really attended to, because I think, as one of the speakers noted, staff did a really detailed job pointing out what needs to change, and the committee did a really intentional job pointing out what needs to change. And I don't believe this is a case of like staff and the committee just being like, oh no, we don't want affordable development, we don't want more housing. It's the expertise speaking to there are certain ways to do that and certain ways to get there. So I think with that, I will wrap up my thoughts and just reiterate, I don't like, my intent tonight is to not say no, but it's to say yes, but. Does anybody have any further comment? Yes, Commissioner Cutright.
I appreciate it, Chair. And I'll be brief here. I think one thing that's important that's been pointed out is that these text amendments were discussed and talked about with staff. And so as we say, or we hear that, that developers or private citizens are writing the code, I think that we should be clear that it is in coordination and communication with staff. And everyone in this room has the opportunity to present text amendments and make modifications, and can do that as a private citizen. And so, I would implore you to do that if you have suggested changes. And I think finally, the UDO isn't perfect as it is. It won't be perfect, if these are approved. But I think it pushes Durham in the right direction toward more efficient land use. And I'll leave my comments there.
Commissioner Carmen Williams.
I think that work is being done to try to move Durham in a positive direction. I read the North Carolina Building Code, I read the ICC, so I read it and I understand it. My concern is that most people do not. So the opportunity to simplify something that makes it easier for residents to understand is one thing, but creating something that is going to make it easier to determine setbacks and eliminate parking restrictions or minimums, I think it pushes things a little too far, a little too fast, and that's only because we haven't fixed the issues that people who still reside in Durham need to solve, and that's how we're going to get around without having a car. And until we fix that, we can't just eliminate parking because that's not going to help. Outside of that, I do take issue with the need to create such an extensive text commitment in order to build more housing on lots where this literally just took place without these commitments on the corner of Club Boulevard and I believe it's Gregson Street, where they demolished one house and built 5. So it's possible. It'll take creativity, it'll take gumption, it'll take resources, but it's possible. They just built 4 homes on Fayetteville Street where there was nothing there. 2 of them are extremely large. 2 of them have ADUs behind them, almost the size of the house, without the current request for text commitments or the need to adjust it by 80 pages. So it's currently happening. I think that we're trying to adjust a system that is trying to play catch up from large developers who have done more harm than good within this city, but I don't think that this is the way that we go about doing it. I think that creatively we can come together and we can find a median that works, because what you're seeking to do, the proponents for this have been more small business, and the opposition to this have been true residents of Durham. So I weigh the city of Durham and its residents against the aggressive nature by which we may be going about trying to make sure that we have equitability in Durham. And if the issue is the fact that the existing code is over 2,000 pages, then I don't know that adding 80 more is going to eliminate the 2,000. So I think that we should be intentional in how we go forward. And I think that the work that was done by the planning department as well as my fellow commissioners in how we're addressing the very real possibilities of what we can create going forward should be taken into consideration. And in doing that, we create an equitable standard in which everybody can thrive in the city of Durham, both developers and residents.
Any other questions or comments? Commissioner Cease.
Thank you. I appreciate
putting the chair in the position of finally having to speak first for once. We were all too afraid to speak on such a complex issue. I was part of the subcommittee working with Vice Chair Cameron and Commissioner Williams, and just wanted to add a few comments to the conversation, reflecting on what we heard tonight. There are a lot of statements and comments and concerns, some accurate, some not. That's the nature of public dialogue and public debate. But I think that I appreciate what I've heard from my fellow commissioners, which has really been focused both on process and the facts. And I think we also heard from a number of residents, both folks here and folks on the Zoom call, who are very much in favor of what's here. What I can tell you is, yes, this is a lot of information, many pages of work, but the suggestion that the committee in some way hasn't gone through it in extreme detail, or the suggestion that staff hasn't gone through it in extreme detail, is just wrong. It's been considered in great detail, and I think that's important to acknowledge. And I'm sure some of my fellow commissioners who weren't on the committee have gone through it in great detail. We certainly had a lot of information to look at and have had the opportunity to look at it for several months. We had a couple of summary comments. One was emailed to us by Philip Azar, an email sent earlier today. I would encourage my fellow commissioners to look at that if you haven't. I thought it hit on a number of very key points. And then the comments by David Berger captured very quickly kind of the economic context in which all of us live, and the need to make change in order to shape change. I think there are a tremendous number of benefits to this proposal. Environmental benefits, building more compactly, opening up more housing opportunities, opening up more commercial repurposing of existing sites that are more neighborhood scale. And there's nothing that this commission or council could do that would be more environmentally positive in terms of land use benefits than eliminating the minimum requirements for parking. And so I really appreciate the effort that everyone who's involved with this has put forth. But I just wanted to kind of highlight a few of those perspectives, and say also that we as the committee identified four very specific concerns, and I'm comfortable supporting what's before us and putting that forth for council to deal with. But as far as the staff report, there's a lot of nuance there. They listed 11, I think, changes that staff supported. They identified some things that were problematic, some things that the applicant did change, and some of that is technical. So it's not a long list of things that are problematic. So I also wanted just to highlight that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Zuri Williams.
Good evening. I appreciate all the work that has gone into these text amendments. I think that it is quite a large document, and some people mentioned developers maybe not being people who initiate these amendments. However, I think that there is benefit in having people who are on the ground and seeing this in real time and seeing how it applies to different lots and different situations is helpful. I also think that the planning staff, being as kind of a sounding board is also very helpful. There are some things that I don't necessarily agree with, but I do think we are moving in a right direction to increase density, which will also, hopefully bring down some of the cost of just, people buying, from a supply and demand perspective. So I don't think it's perfect, but I think we're making a step in the right direction.
Commissioner Baker.
So I opposed these right off the bat. As soon as the application went in, I was against it, and the reason is because industries shouldn't be regulating themselves and they shouldn't be writing the regulations for themselves. They should have input, they're key stakeholders into the process, and they should have strong input into a process that is led and shepherded by the public sector, by the planning department, and potentially with assistance from expertise from other places. And that is an equitable process, and that is how we create regulations that benefit everyone. I do want to touch on one point that I think that I certainly agree with in terms of what the applicants are saying, which is that our zoning regulations are broken. They are extremely broken. They result in an exclusionary built pattern that perpetuates reliance on cars, something we talk about all the time. The setbacks, parking requirements, everything. Of course, lots of parking is built in excess of the minimum parking requirements, which is why, in my day job, I write zoning regulations, and I include parking maximums because so many developers build as much parking. Many developers build as much parking as they possibly can. Our zoning regulations also not only require but allow just vast swaths of corporate built single-family sprawl, something that we see almost every single meeting. We've seen up to 500 acres of single-family sprawl in a single meeting before. So this is really how our city is getting shaped. And there were actually a few proposals that spoke to that in the SCAD. There was one addressing the requirement that was added, I think, late in the game to include commercial and civic uses in new residential developments, which I actually thought was a good thing. We also see in parts of our city where there's already existing development, sort of a financial incentive to tear down single-family, smaller, older single-family units and replace them and the people living in them with larger housing units. Not more housing units, larger housing units. And this proposal allows more of that. It perpetuates that. So without actually achieving additional density in a lot of cases, sort of by adjusting tweaks here and there to dimensional standards and allowing that and incentivizing that financially and economically. So we have a lot of new members on this planning commission. We turn over a lot. I've been here for 4 years. They've got like 2 or 3 other people who've been here that amount of time and a few others who've been here a few years. So we have spent a lot of time talking over those years about how broken our regulations are. So this is not us, this is not me believing that we need to protect the system that we have, because the system that we have is completely indefensible. I think everyone in this room would agree with that. And we've spent time identifying real problems and proposing real solutions. We even had our own committee to develop our own set of zoning regulations. And we passed something 2 years ago, which we still haven't seen, still has not come back to us. And it was 1/2 of a page. So that kind of speaks again to the process. Who gets to benefit? Who gets the power? Anyone can propose a text amendment. If you have the $3,000 or so it takes to propose that text amendment, and who has those resources, and to hire a staff member, a DCRP grad, to be the project manager to shepherd through that process. So we need to think about who has power, how do we make changes, who shapes our city? Is it a city for people, for the working class, or is it people for capital? The proposed content itself is a pretty expansive list. Everyone's been talking about it. Some of it is good, some of it is bad. Some of it is good in concept, but executed in ways that I personally disagree with from my experience writing zoning regulations for communities. And I'm not actually going to walk through all of the different items because there are so many. But I think philosophically, I would say good regulations are good, bad regulations are bad, and the absence of good regulations where they should be is also bad. But if a profit-motivated industry is going to be writing their own regulations, they're going to have a different lens, and that lens is going to be that good regulations are oftentimes bad, bad regulations are bad, and the absence of good regulations is not necessarily bad. And so that is the lens that has been approached for this process. To be clear, once again, the real estate industry should be a very important participant in the amendment process, should have say on the rules that shape the regulations that govern real estate. I have a lot of real estate friends, and I talk with them, and every once in a while, I'm like, wow, that is crazy that we are demanding that, or that those dimensions are that way. We need to make tweaks. We need to be responsive to the real estate industry. But again, who is going to be responsible for shepherding that process? How do we do this in an equitable manner with urgency, recognizing that we should be making some of these changes before fully rewriting the UDO, which is about a 2-year process. So finally, I want to just say that I think we need to take a look at the text amendment process in sort of an action-oriented way and think about whether we want to eliminate it or adjust it to make it more equitable. But I also think that we need to talk more about systems, the systems of planning and development in Durham, because the systems are not working. The systems are not working for the real estate industry, and they're not working for outcomes. And we face a lot of lose-lose situations where we simply could have win-win situations. And I think that we need to address that head-on and proactively. And it's going to take resources. We have a city council member in the room. It's going to take resources from city council members. We're going to need staff dedicated to these projects. We're going to need to bring in some experts who can work on these things. So I was a no right as soon as this was submitted. I took a step back and reviewed the amendments, the proposed amendments. I'm still a no because we don't need to, this is not a real estate deal. These are our regulations. These are the rules that shape urban form. So we don't need to make a deal. We don't need to make a deal with something that's imperfect. We need to make something that is as good as possible. We have that power. And that's it for my comments.
Thank you. Other questions, comments? Okay. I'm ready for a motion. So first, I would like a motion on the text amendment changes.
Question, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Are you going to have a vote on the committee report before or after?
After.
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 Okay.
Yes, I'm waiting for a motion.
I guess I'll make one.
No one wants to.
Chair, I'll make a motion that we take text TC 22-01 text amendment to be forwarded to the City Council and County Commission with a favorable recommendation.
Second. Moved by Commissioner Morgan, seconded by Commissioner Baker. Are there any, is there any discussion on the motion?
I just have a question. We're voting on the one that's redlined.
We are voting on
Staff.
the text amendment changes that were provided in the staff report.
Okay.
And that's correct. That is the red inline version.
Yeah. Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, maybe have the roll call vote.
Chair Amendolia,
No.
Vice Chair Cameron,
Yes.
You have to bear with me because I had to split this voting sheet in half so that I could take all these votes. Commissioner Baker.
I'm sorry.
Chair Cameron said yes. I mean, Vice Chair Cameron said yes, so Commissioner Baker, you're next.
No.
No, was that no? I'm sorry, no.
Correct. No.
Okay, sorry. And Commissioner Shigaris.
No.
Commissioner Cutright.
Yes.
Commissioner Harrod.
Yes.
Commissioner McIver.
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan.
No.
Commissioner Cease.
Yes.
Commissioner Valentine.
No.
Commissioner Carmen Williams.
No.
Commissioner Zuri Williams.
Yes.
It looks like it's a tie, 6-6, which means the motion fails.
Thank you.
Anyone disagree with my math, please tell me now. Thank you.
Okay. Now accept a motion on the committee report. And this will be a motion to endorse the committee report.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Morgan, seconded by Commissioner Valentine. Again, this is a motion to endorse the committee report. Is there any further discussion? Seeing.
This will go to the City Council.
Yes, this will be included in the report to the City Council and the Board of County Commissioners.
Correct.
Okay, ready for the roll call vote?
Chair Amendola.
Yes.
Vice Chair Cameron.
Yes.
Commissioner Baker.
Yes.
Commissioner Shigaris.
Yes.
Commissioner Cutright.
Yes.
Commissioner Harrod.
Yes.
Commissioner McIver.
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan.
Yes.
Commissioner Cease.
Yes.
Commissioner Valentine.
Yes.
Commissioner Carmen Williams.
Yes.
And Commissioner Zuri Williams.
Yes.
And that passed unanimously.
Thank you. Okay, with that, we will move to our last public hearing item of the evening. This is case TC2200002 Development Plan Revisions. We'll begin with the staff presentation.
Hey, good evening. Thank you, Chair Amendola. Staff presented at the last Planning Commission meeting on Development Plan Revisions, Text Commitment TC22000. That amendment was to simplify the development plan process and find a way to center through the process and planning for local developers to proffer commitments on a textual development plan. There was some feedback to do a load testing on some development plans that we've already seen before, how it would play out. That information was shared with the Planning Commission and can be made available to the public. Staff looked at 3 different development plans and how a graphic one would play out in a textual form. In all cases, staff found a level of comfort with the way words could use to describe and depict text commitments and proffers. Staff are available for any questions and are happy to hear your feedback tonight.
Are there any, I guess we will open the public hearing and see if there are any speakers on this item. And if there's anyone on Zoom wishing to speak, please raise your hand at this time. I see 2 people who have signed up in person to speak, Katie Hamilton and Tom Miller. You'll both have 2 minutes each to speak, and then we have some people queuing up on Zoom as well.
Hi, my name's Katie Hamilton. I'm here with Gander Development at 2310 South Miami Boulevard. So I just wanted to speak in favor of this text commitment or text change. I find often that honestly, neighbors understand text just as well as they understand maps, if not better. So I feel that being able to just go through a text-only development plan with more commitments than we're currently allowed in the text commitment or the text-only development plans, which are uses only, is extremely helpful to us. And it really doesn't lack any communication that we're currently getting out of the graphic development plans. So we wanted to speak in favor of this. And while I know the committee has, or commission has said they are very against developer-led text changes, this is one that I would have come forward with if planning weren't ahead of me on the game. It's amazing. I think, we've done it in other municipalities and it's worked great. And it's worth trying this. Talking about affordable housing and keeping regulations, when we're talking about the fact that interest rates have risen so much, a 15-month zoning process is affecting affordability when you're looking at that. So I would just say that, this is one way that you can keep your ability to control things through text commitments while hopefully having some built-in affordability. I have no idea how long I've been talking because the timer isn't on, but hopefully it's under 2 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. I appeared before you last time this came up and I expressed some concerns about it. I'm grateful to the staff for doing the test. That was very helpful. I was glad to see it. I see I get the timer. And I'm willing to give this a go. I do think it's really important from the perspective of ordinary citizens who are reviewing a proposed rezoning. If they're not going to get the kind of information that they would get from the current development plan, which is a lot of information, that we make sure as early as possible in the process we make available to them maps and other things, the graphics from our city mapping programs and what have you, that will enable them to more effectively evaluate projects. If they're not going to get it from the developer in a development plan, let's make sure these resources are easily accessible early in the process. I think we can do this, can't we? And so I've always been a big proponent of text-only development plans, and I say this is the next step, and we should take it and see how it goes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, Alexander.
Hey, thank you, Chair Amendolia. Yes, thank you, Mr. Miller, for that commentary, and that was very helpful. I want to make sure I daylight staff made a change about a year ago, and we're still making it better and stronger based on everybody's feedback. But as soon as a case comes in, it's put onto the interactive website. Please make sure you share that with your groups, your stakeholders. We actually get the maps up on there immediately. We get any application materials up there and a link to the online GIS system. We also have Senior Planner Brooke Roper is working on how to make this more accessible to people, make the language more accessible on that site. So you'll see some changes coming on that, but to Tom's point, we absolutely agree, and we're going to continue to find ways to innovate around that.
Thank you. We have two people with their hands raised in Zoom. First, we have Tim Sivers.
Good evening, Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening, Chair Amendolia, members of the commission. Tim Sivers with Horvath Associates. Thank you for the time to speak this evening. Normally in front of you, as you know, as an applicant, but here this evening in support of this text amendment. This UDO change will absolutely allow applications to move through the process faster, decreasing costs, providing greater affordability to the housing market. I also do agree with the previous comments that were made that it will provide just as much, if not more, clarity to neighbors. I stand with staff fully in support of this change to the UDO, and I do encourage you to vote in favor of it tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Donna Steinbeck.
Donna Steinbeck, 4825 Jimmy Rogers Road, Durham, North Carolina. I support this initiative, except that there are places, and I just want to reiterate that we will benefit by having a map. We use these maps to look at the tree preservation, the borders, the topography, the streams and creek buffers, and having them in one place or one diagram would help us out a whole lot. But I know that a lot of it that is currently being used for can be put in, and I've seen it in the zone change or the zone map change report, and I've used that information. And so like the fact of not having to look at both documents. And that's all.
Thank you. Is there anyone else hoping to speak on this item tonight? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to turn it over to commissioner comment and question. Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. I would accept a motion at this time.
Sure. My turn, okay. I guess Tom, you just should have been in part of this. I know you used to make them.
Say it's the new Tom Miller.
Yeah, I will make a motion that we take text commitment 22-02, the, trying to look for the name of this thing, of development plan revisions, to be forwarded to the City Council and County Commission with a favorable recommendation.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Morgan, seconded by Vice Chair Cameron. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, may we have the roll call vote?
Chair Amendolia,
Yes.
Vice Chair Cameron,
Yes.
Commissioner Baker,
Yes.
Commissioner Shigaris,
Yes.
Commissioner Cutright,
Yes.
Commissioner Harrod,
Yes.
Commissioner McIver,
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan,
Yes.
Commissioner Cease,
Yes.
Commissioner Valentine,
Yes.
Commissioner Carmen Williams,
Yes.
Commissioner Zuri Williams.
Yes.
It passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Staff does have one item before we adjourn. We need to vote on moving the regular meeting in February, from February 14th to the 28th. I did receive a doodle response from most of you, but I knew we were going to see each other tonight. So can we go ahead and do that while we're here? We can do it simple motion and aye.
That sounds good. Can I get a motion?
I move to move the regular scheduled February meeting from February 14th to February 28th, 2023.
Correct.
Second.
Moved by Vice Chair Cameron, seconded by Commissioner Cutright. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed have the same right.
Thank you very much.
Passes unanimously. With that, we have no more items on our agenda this evening, and we will be adjourned at 9:02 p.m.
Yes, let me grab the book. If any of you need parking.